So for 2024 spring and Easter inspiration, we're going to talk about some favorites, and that would be the Salvaged Rabbits and the Tiny Eggs. And what I want to talk about is not only where this demo inspiration lives, but most importantly, these two little SKUs from Advantis in the Ideology line, the Salvaged Rabbits and the Tiny Eggs. Hard to believe that they've only been out a year. They came out last year in 2023, but I have a formal announcement from Advantis. I confirmed with them yesterday. This is the final release year of these two SKUs, meaning after 2024, they will not be coming back. They will be permanently retired. There is plenty of stock available, so don't be sad already and be upset unless you're watching this in the future in a year or so. But right now, they're available at retailers worldwide. If you are a retailer and you sold out of your stock, Advantis still has some remaining stock of these two SKUs, but once they are sold out, they're gone for good. So they will not be coming back anymore in the future. But I'm very grateful. I'm grateful, one, that they did it for the first time because it was only two SKUs, and it's a spring release, which isn't, a huge, big release season. But I'm also grateful that they came back another year. We were initially only doing them for a year, and thanks to you guys and buying them and using them, that we were able to get them this year. But it was nice of them also to kind of give me a heads up to say, hey, just so you know, this will be the last year. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll be sure to say that in the live, so you guys know if you have a use for rabbits or eggs, that definitely stock up, okay? Because, well, I think that's really important if you have some favorite things for the brand, okay? So I'm just going to move this tray out of the way. We'll focus first on the rabbits. I actually have a little update. This is another thing that I also like about going back and looking at some of my previous content and how things have evolved. Maybe I used a product before and now I have a different way to do it. So the Salvaged Rabbits and Tiny Eggs, there is a video devoted to both of the trays that I started with. Mario can pop up a link. It's for Salvaged Rabbits and Tiny Eggs. And that is on YouTube, where you can go in and actually click the timestamp for each one of these techniques to kind of see how things are done. But the cool thing about Salvaged Rabbits is they are just a plastic resin. They are three-dimensional, same on both sides, but they can be altered. That's really the fun of working with this. The first one, probably my favorite, this was done with foundry wax. And foundry wax, what I like about this is it gave it that vintage foiled chocolate rabbit look. You could wrap this in foil, but it's very, very challenging simply because of all the little detailed features and tiny ears. Not to say that you can't do it, but I think foundry wax is the easiest way to do it because you paint it on, you heat it, it becomes this silver leafing, and you do some distress crayon and bam, you're done. And of course, it looks really charming in a basket, whether you wrap it in cellophane. I'll just take it out of cellophane just so you can see how cute it looks. It just does give it that chocolate bunny vibe. So foundry wax is one way. And again, this is all covered in that video. Then I talk about kind of a faux wood. This is just using distress paint. You can use any color of distress paint. I love ground espresso for this. You could try scorched timber. It'd be a little darker, but you could do that. And essentially that's brushing it on and kind of wiping it off. So that's pretty easy to create a wood grain. This one we talked about last year. Didn't really demo it, but it's pretty fun. And this was just painting a rabbit green. I used forest moss. And then if you watched the live last year, we ended up going in and like shaving one of these faux flocked styrofoam things that we got at the craft store and glued on all that little green flocking dust. It's fun. It's like a little topiary. And then Tammy B shared a tip that if you have like a model store or if you have a toy train kind of department in the craft store, you can often find just bags of like that already ground up grass or turf kind of stuff. But it's fun.
It's a lot of fun shaving them.
We're just repurposing. It was hilarious. Mario and I had a good time with that. Then, of course, you can do kind of a concrete crypt. Again, I was inspired by Tammy B for this one. But this, you can use things like pumice stone paint to give it a concrete look. This was a little grit paste crypt, kind of tapped on there, a little distress crayon. And then paired with one of these little urns that we did Ideology for Halloween. But that's also fun because it's a great little kind of garden topiary. And then a chocolate one. Now this one evolved from when I shared it last year to this year. So I'm going to do a demo for this one. Typically for a chocolate rabbit, I was just saying paint. right? Just go ahead and paint the rabbit brown and consider it chocolate. But to me, it was too flat and it didn't really have that look of a chocolate bunny, which often has that slight sheen, often kind of, well, waxy, yummy chocolate Easter rabbit look, okay? So this one I kind of morphed. This is the new version, and this is what I'm also talking about when it comes to techniques, and I cannot stress this enough. Be open-minded when you learn techniques from anyone, anywhere. Be open-minded. Don't just look at something and be like, yep, I'll never do that. I don't like to do this thing. Take the technique value and see if you can apply that technique elsewhere. Case in point, what I shared, which was called chocolate stamping. And I think this was in 2022 I shared this, which is essentially taking distress ink. This was gathered twigs and walnut stain. Again, the Easter 2022, Mari, if you want to throw a link for that one. Sure. That one actually did this demo for chocolate stamping. And it is where you stamp your image in your distress of choice. And it could be ink or oxide, either one. It doesn't really matter. I prefer ink, just it gives it a little bit more saturation of color. And then you add glaze over it, distress embossing glaze. And depending on your pairing, your color combos, that is going to create the kind of chocolate you want, be that milk chocolate, extra dark chocolate, okay? Because distress is an embossable ink and the glaze is translucent. So when you mix the two colors, that's what gives you a totally different shift. I kind of prefer more the vintage photo chocolate space, but hey, if you want to do walnut stained glaze or even scorched timber, you're just going to have darker chocolate. This, of course, was done with stamps where I would stamp a color and emboss. And I thought, I wonder if I could apply that to the rabbit. Like, would it be heat stable enough to emboss? Would it look good if I did the glaze over paint instead of ink? And well, this is the result. This is actually walnut stain, paint, and vintage photo glaze. I kind of went off of this where I'm like, okay, I like walnut stain and vintage photo. I kind of like that range. But I love that the finished result, of course, is this cool chocolatey rabbit. So let's get there. Let's do that. Let's kind of play around and we'll just jump around the whole time. And another great breakthrough, and I know this probably won't matter to most people, I was able to touch steel wool, which is huge. I don't normally like to touch steel wool, but I did. I did for this one, and I was pretty impressed with myself. Because normally I like put steel wool on an ink tool because I can't stand the way it feels, and hey, for this one, you're gonna wanna touch it. Okay, so let's bring this little guy into frame, just so we remember where we're going with this. Here's our little rabbit. Okay, so here's kind of my prep space, if you will, and what I did to create this. So we started with a salvage rabbit. That's most important. And you need to be patient with this. So if you're gonna make these, my advice to you is kind of do this more in a series, or a sequence of stuff. I think that's going to be helpful. Let's see, is that good? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I always get nervous when I zoom in on this app because it does get a little freaky, but hey, not bad. That's better. This way it's a little closer. If I ran out of space, I can move it. You guys can see a little bit better? Hopefully so. Okay, so what I did is I start with a craft stick, a popsicle stick. You definitely want something that will hold on to this because we're going to need to emboss it. And so I felt that working on a craft stick is easiest for me. I used what's that?
A very smooth one.
A smooth one. I don't like splintery craft sticks. That also freaks me out. Steel wool, craft sticks, microfiber cloths, yeah, all of those things, they freak my freak. But I'm getting there. Really, I'm overcoming certain issues slowly. So this is red line tape. Anything heat stable. I don't like to use hot glue because hot glue remelts when you use the embossing gun and it falls off. So heat stable tape will help. So what I did is I peeled this off. I stuck on one of the white rabbits. There we go. He started out white and then painted him. And I needed to paint him with 2 coats of paint. One layer of distress paint, it goes on more of that wood grain effect. This is pretty much like one layer of paint. You can still see some of the white that shows through. So I wanted to make sure that he was pretty solid. So you paint it, let it dry, or you could dry it with a heat tool. But again, it's still plastic. So don't get all freaky with yourself with that heat tool and cook him, because if you think that he's starting to fall asleep or his ears are, that's because you're melting him. So you want to just kind of heat that up, let it cool for just a few seconds, heat it again, so you're able to dry it. So I painted him 2 layers of that, and we let that dry too. This is the stage that we're at. So we've already painted our Salvaged Rabbit, and now we're going to talk about how do we glaze him. Okay, well, the glaze, you would think, okay, well, embossing glaze, we should use embossing ink, right? No, not really, because the reason embossing ink works on cardstock is because that glycerin-based ink can soak into the cardstock when you emboss it, when you heat it. But on something like plastic, or even if you're applying embossing powder or glaze to metal, you need that powder to actually permanently bond to the surface. And so we're going to use Collage medium. You could use another gel medium, you could try other adhesives, but you need to use a wet adhesive to get the powder to stick. Otherwise, even if you embossed it with the embossing ink, that hard plastic embossing powder and that hard plastic surface is sandwiched in that glycerin ink, and all your embossing will just, it'll flake off, and that would be pretty depressing. All right, let me see if I have a piece of paper. I do. Just gonna have a piece of paper just to kind of catch my embossing glaze. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a paintbrush. You just need something pretty small. Get your Collage medium. You wanna have your glaze or powder at the ready because you do wanna work quickly. Collage medium dries fairly fast. Not super speedy, but fairly fast. So I wanna be generous, but I don't wanna be gloppy, okay? I'll show you what I mean. So, I'm just going to paint this on, and I'm trying to paint it where I can see through my phone, but also paint it. So the first time I put this on, I'm just going to get some of this onto the rabbit first. And this is when I talk about gloppy. That's what I consider gloppy, right? Where it looks like it playing around in frosting. That's not what we want it to be. So when you're like, well, why are you doing it? Because I want to get the glue on first, which is what I'm doing. I'm getting a pretty generous amount of glue on there, Collage medium. Then I can just set the lid on there and now use this brush and just move it around. Just make sure that the Collage medium is covering everything, but it should have, see that kind of white hazy look? That's what we want. We want it to be kind of hazy because if it's not, that means the Collage medium most likely is already dry and the glaze won't stick to it. If that happens, you'd have to just do it again. You know, you'd have to wait for it to cool, after you emboss it and do it a second time, and I really don't want to have to do it a second time. Okay, so I'm just tipping it around, making sure you're getting in kind of all the angles inside the ear. If you see any buildup of Collage medium, right, if it looks really white, just take that brush and kind of knock that down. Okay, so once you think you've done a pretty good job, set that down. We're going to take our glaze, we're going to pour it on one side, we're going to flip it over so you can see how that craft stick is really helpful. And I want to pour it like all the angles, so all the same, you know, on the foot, on the back, in the ear. So be generous with it. This isn't something where you just kind of lightly spoon it. All that glaze can go back in the jar. All right. So we want to give it a nice cover. I'm just pouring. Okay. Then I'll give that a little tap so you can see. It kind of looks like a little, those flocked rabbits that we're seeing. Oh, I missed some on the top of his head. I see a little shine. There you go. Excellent. So far, so good. Okay. So once that's done, I'm going to set this aside. If I was going to do more, I would just go on to the next one. So essentially, when I talk about compartmental making, that is like do all your painting, do all your gluing, put all your powder, all that stuff, and then we'll be able to kind of work assembly line style. If you're done, you can just clean your brush with water. If not, we can just wrap it in a baby wipe or a damp paper towel. So I'm going to just take a paper towel and I'll spray it with a little bit of water. So I just have a paper towel, just spraying some water on there. Whoop. Oh, hey, now I'm going to clean my brush because I just rolled it through my, oh no, I'm good. I was able to clean it off. I thought for a minute I was actually cooking it. Nope, I've got it. Thanks, Mario. All right. So what I want to do, I'm not trying to stall for time, but you need that to dry. It needs to dry for at least a few minutes. And I know in live, I always say like a few minutes to me seems like hours, and that would be true. The reason we don't want to emboss it right away is the Collage medium needs to dry. If it doesn't dry and you go and heat emboss this right away, that glue will start to bubble and it will just give your chocolate rabbit probably a texture that you're not looking for. Okay, so I just poured that glaze back in the jar. Zippity-doo, we're done. I just need to feel the mat. I feel a little bit of sand, but I don't need to clean it yet because I'll need to clean it in just a second. In fact, I'm going to keep this for my steel wool scraps. Okay, so let's say you're like me and you don't want to wait for your collage medium to dry. I'm not going to. Here are some tips. I'm going to start with just a heat tool, okay? A heat tool, this is the heat tool from Ranger that I use for inks and everything else, but it diffuses the heat. So what this is going to do is this is just going to kind of warm up that rabbit and hopefully help dry that collage medium. But drying time, I would say, is give it a good 10 minutes if you can. You know I'm not going to do that 10 minutes in the live. There's no way. I'm just going to kind of get this warmed up for now with my heat tool just to kind of start that process. And then I'm going to set aside. Could you emboss with this? You could, but it's going to take a long time. I'm going to use an embossing gun in just a minute. So all I did was just kind of get that rabbit a little, is he still in frame? There you go. Just a little warmed up. And while that's finishing drying, I'm just going to talk about some other ideas, okay? So some other ideas that we can do is really about what we put the rabbit in. And I'll get to the eggs in just a second. But one of them is the Ideology barrel. And I really love that. I love the barrel. In fact, I even did a tray. I did. Wow. See, sometimes I prep. This is totally true. Sometimes I prep the night before, which I always do before live. But then in the morning, when I'm getting ready, I look at something. I'm like, what was on your mind? What did you have this tray of nothing for? Because this is a tray of nothing to me. This is why. Vessels and containers. There's a lot of things that you can put your Easter makes in. This, of course, the Ideology resin barrel. That's really great because this barrel is perfect for the Salvaged Rabbit. Makes for a cute little bucket. You can make a basket. You can do any of that. But then we have a lot of glass SKUs that we can do. The Reliquary Dome, that's one of the newest ones. It's tall and wide. You can make a whole scene in there. We have the Display Dome, and this is one that I shared. I think I shared this last year where it was about, just taking a nest from a craft store and using some of the tiny eggs. But that's a great display. But you could do a whole Easter display in that. If you're looking specifically for something to just fit the rabbit, I would recommend the small display dome. And I say that because we have a display dome, a small display dome, and then we even have mini display domes. And the mini display domes are too small for the rabbit, okay? So you want the small size. The small size, that's this one. It's a really good size because he fits, perfect. As if it were made to order. You could glue him in or do grass or whatever, but you can see that he totally fits in that. You can wrap something around. But this is a great way if you just want to make a single rabbit and do this as a gift. I think that would be really charming. So it's just important that, especially because I know many of you shop online and you don't necessarily get to see the scale. So it's small that fits the rabbit, not the mini. The other ones are much bigger for a scene, okay? But I always like to look for stuff. I always love to see, I say to Mario, I'm like, we need to go shopping. We need to see like what's out there, what's new. It's like, okay, let's go check it out. Let's see what is available. Here's what I found this year. And again, we're still waiting on this one to dry, so no worries. We'll get back to the chocolate, I promise, before we do any other demos. But take a look at this. And I know like this one just brought back like nostalgic memories like right out of the gate. I found these tiny baskets. You can find them at the craft store. I found mine at Hobby Lobby, but you can go maybe look at the dollar store, maybe look online, depending on what's available to you. But these are natural baskets, and I think they came in a pack of 5 or 6. And I thought, I wonder if I could stain them a color. Okay, because sometimes it would be sprayed in a varnish or something that would seal it. And you know what? It stained beautifully. Look at these. You totally remember these colors. That hot pink basket or that wonderful teal. You could go in and you could paint these, but I always remember just seeing that stained wicker basket as a kid, the purples and yellows and greens. You're right, it's such a flashback, and I'm like, what? That's so cool. So this is just taking distress spray stain. Of course, you could try oxide spray. You could even use spray paint. It just depends. I wanted it to be translucent because I still wanted to see, I wanted to see all the wickerness of the basket. So that's why I wanted to use the spray stain. I put them in the box. I just soak them with spray, let them dry. Probably takes a good half an hour to dry, or you can use a heat tool. Then before it was totally dry, I went in with a paper towel and wiped it off because I wanted to have kind of a little bit of that wear. But now you could take some Easter grass. You can use wax grass. I remember this too. This created a whole frenzy last year. I love vintage wax grass. You could find this on eBay. Because Easter grass in today's world in stores, it's terrible. It's really fun. It's like thick cellophane nonsense. This is wax paper. I love it. Really cute. But then you can just take that, and how perfect is that? You can, put the rabbit in there. You can fill it with all sorts of things. But to me, it was like the perfect fit. Perfect fit. It's really, it's good. So, I think that's fun. And I encourage stores even. I know that a lot of things are in an Amazon world, but I'm one of those makers that I don't always need 20 of something. So even though people go, oh, it's cheap on Amazon. Yeah, do you need 25 baskets? If you're making stuff, maybe you can find that one. So if you're a retailer, I do encourage you to even shop those places because it is a convenience to your customer that they can come in and get like one or two. I'm not sure if these are on Amazon, but the point is, it is a cute little basket size. It is about 2 inches wide by like 2 3/4 tall. I mean, it's perfect. It's perfect. The grass is vintage. I got this on eBay. You just type in vintage wax grass. It was for the putz houses, the little paper mache houses, and you can find it. They sell it by the weight. So don't be surprised if you see a picture of like this sitting on a digital scale. That's how you buy grass on eBay, is on that digital scale. But to me, it's key. And some retailers, got savvy because it's expensive. Like people want to sell a wad of it for like 50 or 60 bucks, but it's a lot of grass. It's more than really the average maker would get. So I know that some people, I even know like Simon Says bought it last year and like put it in smaller bags because a little goes a long way. Look, if I just take this, there's so much in here. And honestly, if I was making something with it, even this, I would normally fill the bottom with a styrofoam ball, and I've talked about that in previous lives, to fill the void, and then I would just use a little bit of that grass as a topper. The styrofoam ball is also great because you can glue in your elements better than just that little puffy grass. So yeah, just a lot of fun. I think it's really, really, they're great. It was a fun way to use your spray stains or your oxide, and it brought back that nostalgic moment like immediately. Like, yep, Chocolate Rabbit wasn't a pink basket. It's normally a blue one or one of those crazy purple ones with like the yellow stripes. But yeah, and you could even go in and probably paint stripes. There's a lot of things. Just have fun with Easter ideas. That's what this live is all about, ideas. Okay, let's go and finish our chocolate rabbit. All right, get that little grass off of there. Okay, so we've given enough time for this to dry, I think, and we're going to emboss it. And again, if you want to use the Ranger heat tool for embossing, you can. It just takes a while. I think it just takes a little bit longer than I want. So I'm going to use an embossing gun. Same temperature as this. This diffuses heat. That's what makes it really great for drying ink and paint. This focuses heat. Okay, very, very hot. So what you want to be careful of when you're embossing the rabbit is don't sit there in one spot and keep pointing, because that's how you'll melt the plastic. You need to heat a little bit, move it around, heat a little bit, move around, that whole thing. So we're going to heat it up first. Perfect. And then we're going to go in and emboss it. So this is how it looks to start. I'll try to kind of do both, but often it goes out of frame when I'm doing it. So I'm fairly close. You can see I'm about 1 inch. And so I'll start, but then you'll just see me kind of move it around. Because embossing powder is just ground up plastic that we need to melt back to a solid. So once the entire rabbit reaches that temperature, it'll start melting. And I think most people, when they do this, they get super impatient, even on a card, where they want to like focus it on one spot and want that whole thing to just flash melt right before their eyes. That's not what we're going for. This is just about just kind of warming them up. Think of like coming in and, I don't know, warming them up with a hairdryer, but we're really using a heat tool. You can see he's starting to melt. See that? So that's going to be the embossing glaze because he's kept his shape. And once it starts embossing, it pretty much goes fairly quick all the way around. You can see there's his hands that start doing it. This is one of those things, just don't be in a rush. It's okay. We're makers. I think in today's world though, maker mindset is so different. There's so many people that seem more annoyed by making. You know, they're like, I'm a maker, but this is taking too long. I'm like, but what else do you have to do? Isn't the whole point to make? I mean, gosh, spending the whole day making, even if it's just one card, is still better than anything else, I think, as a maker. So here we go. You can see him really starting to, the glaze is starting to melt, and you can tell the parts that aren't melted because they're still matte and they're a different color brown. I'm still moving him around. That tape is holding him. That's why we want some of that red line tape. It's really important. Also, when you're embossing, keep this in mind. Embossing has different stages. Usually when it first starts to melt, it goes through what many refer to as orange peel, where it looks kind of bumpy, like an orange peel. But the longer you heat it, the more that plastic liquefies, therefore the more it smooths out. So even on a card, sometimes you don't have enough glaze for it to ever smooth, but I think for the most part, if you just give it another pass, you'll see that it smooths out really, really well. All right. So far, so good. You can see our rabbit. Okay. So now I just need to move him down because I need to get into light instead of looking through the phone. I always use the light of my studio to see, like, where is it shiny, where is it not. But you get the idea. That's all I'm doing now, is kind of doing my final workaround, making sure that everything's embossed. And so see, by moving it, even though I'm melting that plastic embossing glaze, I'm not really melting off his ears or arms. All right, I'm going to give him one more. And you can't over emboss it as far as the glaze is concerned. You know, you could certainly over melt it to where his ears or something else melt, but we don't want to do that. All right. Ooh-wee, so good. Okay, there we go. So there is our chocolate rabbit. Look at him. Okay, so you may love the shininess of the chocolate. If you like that, go for it. I'm really not a fan of the shine, but this would look good as more like a ceramic chocolate rabbit. So if you wanted to just leave it in its shiny glory, leave it. You don't have to do this next step. The next step is going to go in and actually dull this out, okay? Because the embossing glaze is what gave it just such a great shine. And this could be done with other colors, okay? Meaning, if you didn't want to do a chocolate rabbit, maybe you wanted like a ceramic pink rabbit. Well, then paint it pink and use a pink embossing glaze. And then that would give you a ceramic pink or ceramic blue, or really anything that you want. You can add any different colors you want if you didn't want to go chocolate. But for this purpose of this demo, we're going with chocolate. Okay. So next, we're going to transform him. We're going to transform him from this to this. So because it's already embossed, it's done. Now is when I can do the dismount on the stick. He's cool to the touch. You want him to be cool enough that you can touch. You're just going to peel that off the tape. This tape I don't reuse. I just peel that off, and then I'll put on a fresh piece for the next rabbit or whatever I do. I use this sticks for a lot of things. Okay, so this is kind of the before and after. This is before and this is after. And really all you have to do to dull it out is steel wool. Steel wool is important. Sandpaper is not going to work. I don't know what a lot of people ask, like, you know, what is the number of steel wool? It's just kind of steel wool.
I think it's like, I'll go look, but I think it's 00.
See, Mario actually knows. I don't know. I'm like, it's the one in the bag.
Yeah, I think
okay.
I'll go check.
Thanks, Mario.
Sure.
All right, so all you're going to do is just take steel wool, and again, this could be done on a card. This could be done on really anything that you make. Let's say you want to do some embossing, but you don't want your embossing to shine. That's all you got to do is just take some steel wool to dull the shine. And we're just kind of going in a circular motion. This is where I had to get over my fear of having that steel wool on a tool, because you need it to get in all the little areas and the tool just didn't allow you to do it. But it's fine. Really, it's okay. I have that piece of paper because I don't really like those little fragment shrapnel pieces. The other thing that I like about doing it by hand with the steel wool is I don't mind leaving some of the shine there. I mean, after all, we want it to look like chocolate, and I know from the memories of childhood that, you know, you'd have that chocolate rabbit that had a little shine because you know that hollow rabbit is, well, it was that wonderful waxy chocolate that was like eating a birthday candle, but you didn't care as a kid, did you?
You go with
You
that
didn't.
steel wool.
I know.
Anyway, it's 0000.
Thanks. It's 0. That is the number that I'm using.
4 zeros.
There we go. Thanks, Mario. So once you're happy with the finish, which I'm happy with that finish, we're good. We're done. And you can keep going. You can keep going to actually make it as dull as you want. Like if you didn't want any shines here, I left a little bit of shine in there. If you didn't want it, I mean, really, you can be very aggressive when it comes to steel wool and embossing glaze. But I think just having it in that big chunk really makes it so much easier to go in and do it. But you will get that dust. So do it over something that makes it easy to clean up. A lot of times, especially if you're on the glass media mat, you don't see these and you don't realize they're there. And then that's what I don't like about steel wool. It's like little metal pieces everywhere. It's really good. So why emboss if I'm taking the shine off? Because embossing is what's giving me this texture. See that texture in there? Where it actually looks like chocolate. It's not just smooth. See? This is just paint. This is what the embossing glaze does. It actually puts a layer of plastic, which to me gives it more of that texture or dimension of a chocolate rabbit. So that's really what I like. There we are. So it wasn't about adding shine. It was about adding texture with the glaze. So
You know, I
there
think
you go.
that
It's
steel
fun.
wool doesn't bother you because it is that fine.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
you know, not like the rough steel wool that when, you know, kind of, well,
The old school?
yeah, when you used to
Yeah.
wash your pots.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Probably not.
It's
You
easy.
didn't,
But
but
it's a fun texture.
Yeah.
I mean, I love what that glaze does. And you can play around with different mixtures, different chocolates, but now we have faux chocolate rabbits. So that's really what it was, you know, looking, when the rabbits came out last year, I did just paint it brown and I considered that a chocolate rabbit. But when I talk about chocolate embossing, giving it that texture, I'm like, I wonder if I can do it to the rabbit. So you know me, if it's a what if, I'm going to answer it. Okay, so let me just wipe this. Let me just wipe this off just to make sure there's nothing, just for my peace of mind. Okay, perfect. Okay, so far so good, right? Love it. I do. I love those little rabbits. Fun. Love little rabbits, and yeah, I'm gonna make some chocolate rabbits, and I'll definitely put chocolate rabbits and put them in a basket. It'll be fun. I'll post some finished assembly stuff on Instagram. I think that'll be great. Okay, let's talk briefly about. I'll put this back because I took it off. About all the eggs, because there again, all of these egg techniques are on YouTube. Mario can put the link up again. Salvage rabbits and eggs. So it's the same video that shows how to do the rabbits. I should put the chocolate ones back now. So same video that shows how to do the rabbits also shows how to do the eggs, because that was when they came out. So just quick review of some things you can do with tiny eggs. So these are also plastic, but they're tiny and they're really great. And they're more than just Easter. So easiest way, alcohol ink. So this is literally a Ziploc bag, couple of drips, but they dry shiny and like candy. You could put them in a little jar. I think these would be cute in a shaker. Your shaker would have to be pretty thick, but I think having little colored eggs as a shakety shake would be really cute. These, take a look at these little mini foiled eggs. They're actually really easy. It's just candy foil that you can find at the craft store, or you can buy bigger sheets again on Amazon, but I prefer just the smaller ones for tiny eggs. So alcohol ink the foil, so you color it and then you wrap the little eggs. This one, oh, these are yummy. Look at these little sugared eggs. So good. This is using distressed rock candy, tinting the glitter with alcohol ink, and then using collage medium, or you can use glossy accents. I use glossy accents because it's quicker, but we just start out with the plain egg, and these are rolled in tinted glitter. Now, I've seen Paula do it the other way, where you could actually tint the eggs and then just cover them with clear glitter. So you don't have to tint the glitter. It just depends on the look you're going for. But I really love this effect. And Tammy B did one of those vintage sugar eggs where she actually used that glitter on a big paper mache, made a vintage sugar egg, which I love. And let's face it, you know, if you were lucky enough to score some rock candy last year, you got enough to glitter all things, hopefully. But if not, you still have this jar that you can use. So bright ones I used right here, Gumball Sunset Orange, Dandelion, and Turquoise. And then this one is Purple Twilight right there. But play around. I mean, there's so many great colors, but these bright colors are what I used for this one. And then, probably can't tell far away, but take a look at these little speckled eggs. This is what I use in that little nest. So I've just painted them with, well, you guessed it, speckled egg. And again, the demo shows you how quick. You literally paint with your fingers. You roll the egg and you flick it out, and you roll it goes super fast. So speckled egg for speckled eggs. Once they're dry, you take a splatter brush and you flick on some color. I use black, but of course now I would use scorched timber because that is kind of like that black brown color, which would be perfect. But you could use ground espresso. You can really use any colors you want. But just wanted a little refresher on tiny eggs and what you can use them for. So spring makes, I know I've even seen eggs like for Halloween where people have like put eggs around, you know, did them all green and put them around a cauldron. Just some fun ideas to use with the eggs. Don't forget the fun ideas, because the eggs here, I'm like a 5-year-old, I swear. I need to just get over myself, but I can't, because once I have that idea, I'm like, I just want to play. Because now that I made that chocolate rabbit, I'm like, oh, I want to put that in. I want to add some little eggs. But yeah, I would glue all this like to a styrofoam ball. But how fun is that? And then wrap it in cellophane, do a little bow. Maybe I'd find some other little elements that you could put on. It's just fun. That's just Easter. And you could put this in a vignette box. You could put it under one of the domes. I think that would be great, is just to take this basket and put it under one of those reliquary domes, because I think the arch of the dome really mimics that. Just the point is, have fun. That's what I want you to be mindful of for the making season. If you like to make for spring and Easter, just have fun. Okay, let me move some of this stuff out of the way. We'll talk about some other things. Mario, can I give you these trays?
Sure.
Thanks. I don't know what I'll need back. You know,
Sure,
it'll be close. All right. Thanks. You got them?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I gave him both trays. He's got it. The restaurant days, you have it. Okay. All right. So some other things. I'll give you that too. There's a little basket.
Thank you.
Just trying to make room. I've got like this whole assembly line of ideas sitting off to the side that I want to get to the new stuff. Okay. Another flashback are going to be the carrots. So the carrots were done, let me look. The carrots are actually done in 2022. So Mario, if you don't mind putting a link for Easter 2022.
Sure.
Super simple, okay? It's taking the Ideology Christmas trees, the woodland trees, and using your distress sprays. You can use oxide spray. I like to use a mix of oxide and spray stain, because this is just spray stain. That's why it looks electric. This one is a mix of oxide with spray stain, so it has a little bit dulling. And I had fun with these carrots for years. But last year, for Christmas, we released alpine trees in Ideology. Now these trees they've long sold out at Christmas, so this is for people that have them in their stash, or maybe retailers that bought up and you have them. Get them out and use them. But to me, these are the perfect carrots. These were great. They were fun. We made use of what we had, but these are definitely pretty chunky carrots. But how perfect are these alpine trees? It is that skinny tree that, in my opinion, is the perfect carrot. You literally spray it, wrap it in a paper towel, it dries in minutes, and you're good to go. And you can top it with either raffia, or last year I went to the craft store and you just look for like weird plastic shrubs that are nothing, and you cut them apart and you just hot glue them around the wire that's in the tree. The trees have these wooden bases. So after you ink them, you just twist these off. You could cut them, but really they just twist off. And then that little wire piece, that's where I hot glue all that green stuff around it. You know, you could wrap it with string. I mean, there's a lot of different ideas, but when I saw this, I had to make some alpine tree carrots, because to me, the scale is, well, these are great, but hey, when you got skinny trees, you make carrots. Another thing just to point out is when you're using your sprays, be rando, super random. Because, you know, when you're spraying stuff, like have some dark spots of color, have some light areas, just have a good time. And they don't have to be orange. If you have a different decor where you want to make pastel carrots, you want to do pink or blue, knock yourself out. But there you go. So if you happen to get some alpine trees, make some carrots if you have it. Oh, really? Yeah. I'm going to need to get some from Simon. This is my last package.
Yeah,
it is.
Crying last night.
I'm like, you've got to be kidding. And we went through everything in the garage. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I hope they come back next year. I really do. I know. Okay, thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
Okay, so speaking of bottle brush becoming a carrot, this was something that I talked about as well, which is if woodland trees for ideology can become carrots, then certainly Bottlebrush Tree stamps could be carrots. And this was something that I talked about last year, Easter 2023, how to do this. It's really, really simple. I'm going to do a quick demo because I actually refer to a demo from Christmas. Well, and I think that's pretty far away. But what makes it different this time from last time is that last year, Simon Says Stamp did some dies to coordinate with stamps. Now, I'm not sure if these are still available, but they were at one time. But these are dies that coordinate with this. So as much as I loved just the look of doing this technique on cardstock, when you have the ability to die cut, well, we already know it's just next level because, you know, you can raise it off of the surface and totally change it. Not that you have to have a die, you can still hand cut this, but it was one of those things that, you know, if something changes from one year to the next and there's an idea, I want to talk about it so we can connect the dots. Okay, so we're just going to do this really quick. It'll be fast. Again, this is perfect for Christmas, but an easy way that we can do a carrot as well. What we're going to do...
Heidi says she's going to grab you a few packs before they sell out.
Oh, Alpine?
Yeah.
Thanks, Heidi. Seriously, I was like, oh my gosh, because I don't know. I mean, unless Advantis tells me like they did for the eggs and rabbits, it's not coming back. That means it's a pretty good possibility that it is coming back, but we haven't really hit Christmas yet. Okay, I'm going to work with a platform. You want to work with something that you have the ability to stamp twice for this. Okay, let's just take this. I'll put this down. I'm just going to make this really quick. You guys won't mind. It's just going to be a quick refresher. I'm pretty sure that's the one I used. Okay, good enough. Okay, now if we're die cutting, which we could, then it doesn't really matter. You could do a lot of carrots on one piece of watercolor cardstock. I'm using the smooth side of distressed watercolor cardstock for this. If you're going directly on a card, then you want it positioned where you think you're going to want that carrot to be. Okay, it's completely up to you as to how you want to do it. Make sure it's kind of in the corner. We want to keep it where it needs to be. Okay, perfect. I'm going to always, you know, use your hand to actually push into the hinge so we make sure that we keep the stamp where we need it to be. You're going to work with your favorite colors of distress ink. Minis are perfect for this. You want something that's going to be water reactive. So you can use really any kind of water reactive ink to do this. And I'm just inking it up with some different colors. All I'm inking though is the tree part. I'm not doing the base because the base is going to be covered because we're going to just make the carrot. But different mixes of colors I think is going to be good. I don't know if maybe I used spice. I don't know. I'm that person that if I don't know if I use it, I'll just use it again. Okay. Now, it won't contaminate your ink pads. Just using a little bit, that's totally fine. So this is what we have. Excellent, great. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to give it a spritz or two of water. We want to create droplets on here, okay? See the droplets right there? There we go. And if you want to do another one for good measure, that's fine too. Then what we want to do is stamp. So again, I'm just going to hold into that, place down, stamp with purpose, hold it there for just a second, lift it off. That's what we want. We want that like model-y drippage, okay? Then we're going to dry it. Perfect. Now, do you have to use a heat tool? No, you could let it air dry. There's nothing wrong with that. I like to just use a heat tool often when I do any kind of watercolor because I can get most of the texture to dry, and then it does give me the flexibility that if I just want to go in and like dab off some of that extra ink, I'll show you what it does because I'm going to take this off too. So I need my stamp to be clean, but I don't want to take it off of the positioner, but I like the fact that I can just remove the top. I'm going to wipe off that water and use that water to kind of clean my stamp. So I wipe the water off of that and clean my stamp, okay? what we have here is that great little watercolor. Easy, right? Super simple just to do that. A couple of drips, and again, blotting it off is what is giving me kind of those lighter areas. Okay. Now I still see that there's water because I did stamp in water, so there's just water there. I'm just going to take that off just because. Make sure this is dry. Again, just using a heat tool. Excellent. Okay. So next what we're going to do is you could be done at this point, but if you want to add some shine, some little sparkle, we're going to use sticky embossing powder, and we're going to use rock candy. I think for the sake of the demo, Mario, would you mind handing me that jar of rock candy that's on the tray with the paint? The ink right there? Thank you so much. Just because, I don't want to, if anyone didn't get the big one. This is the same stuff, it's just in the jar that they sell all the time. Okay? Then we need to stamp it with an embossing ink, because at this point, our ink is dry, and now we need something for our embossing powder to stick to. Sticky embossing powder is essentially powdered glue. You put it on, when you heat it, it becomes sticky. That's it. And that makes it really, really easy. Could you do this other ways? Sure, you could probably go with glossy accents and a paintbrush and brush on glue and add glitter. There's many ways that you can glitter an image, but to me, if you have sticky embossing powder and an ink, it makes it so much more efficient. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let me move this out of the way. Okay. Just have to have a lot of stuff ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to ink up that same carrot with embossing ink. We're going to stamp it. Then we're going to remove it because we're done stamping with it. We're going to apply sticky embossing powder over that image, and then we'll be set for now. We'll have to heat it and do the glitter, but we won't need the stamp platform for that. Embossing ink, tap, tap, tap. Now again, you want to just ink up the tree part. It doesn't matter. You don't have to mask this off. You can wipe it off. If you get some ink where you don't want it, it's going to get covered with all the green fluff anyway. So even that little stem, it doesn't really matter. So I'm again press into the hinge, press that down just to get some ink on there. Take it off. Now we can remove it from the magnets. Take our sticky powder, pour it over the top, and give it a little tap. So that's what we have. We have covered that emboss, and you can see where it just lines up perfectly. All these extra little flaky bits, that could be where maybe there was still moisture on the paper, or maybe I had some embossing ink when I stamped it. Just wipe it off. It could be with your fingers or a paintbrush, but that's what we want. Now we have our powder on there, so we're good to go. Take this off. I'm just going to clean it. Just wipe it off. Stamp, I'll put it back. Now, if I was doing repeat, I would do all my watercolor stamping, because if I don't move it, it would be the same. I could put any of them back into play. So a lot of times I'll do all the watercolor stamping and then I'll do the embossing. It just makes it pretty easy. Okay, let's get the powder back in. Put that back. Now it's time to glitter. So for glittering, again, you have options. I'm pretty much, I like to just dump glitter, and I don't like glitter everywhere, so I normally would use a container, which I'm about to do, just to pour some glitter in. Sticky embossing powder is not like regular embossing powder. It's referred to that because it's essentially you need an embossing ink and heat to activate it, but it's not plastic. It has a very low melting temperature. So I often use a heated tool for this, but you could use anything. You could use a regular embossing gun. It doesn't really matter. And all we want to do is we want to heat this up until it goes from this powdery stuff to clear. In fact, I need my little hands. There we go. Because I like to get really close, and these little hands, they're so much easier than like burning your fingers. See how quick it melts? Look, it's already clear. So the key to get this to work is that you need to heat it up until it turns clear. As soon as it's clear, done, and glitter. Very important. You have to work like instantaneous, because what happens is when that turns clear, it becomes glue. Okay? If you continue to heat it because you think, oh, I want to make sure it's really, really, really melted, you're essentially drying the glue. Does that make sense? So once it's clear, that's why you want something at the ready. take it, pour the glitter on there, and now give it a second, because what we need it to do is now we want that glue to dry and hold on to the glitter. Don't be concerned of all this static of the glitter. That'll go back. We don't need an anti-static pad or anything like that. Okay? So for this, I know that my glitter is stuck to my image. I don't mind going like one pass over the top. Not re-embossing, see, just for a few seconds, just to make sure that that glitter and that glue have bonded. Look at how sparkly it is. Pretty perfect. Okay? And you, again, these could be done in so many different orders. You can take a brush. Sometimes if I'm doing a lot, I'll use like a collage brush, but you can just take your fingers, brush off any of that excess that was like static charge. See, it's gone. And now you have a glittery carrot. Easy. This, when you're done, can go back. I like little tins that have nice corners because I can put stuff back in the jar, especially glitter. Glitter seems to like expand when you use it. You get more and more. But that's how easy it is. And you just go and go, and then to finish it, this is just a little green raffia and a tiny attacher. You can use any kind of greenery. Maybe you want to use ribbon. Maybe you want to use whatever you want. And just use a tiny attacher. You could use glue if you want. I didn't mind the whole tiny attacher look. You can stamp any kind of sentiment on it. For your cards, I just did like craft stock that I did some splatter paint. I used some green. But yeah, the die cut's really fun, isn't it? And then I just inked the edges. I mean, we can go into the whole card part, but I wanted to at least share how simple it was to do the carrots during an Easter live instead of saying, go back and watch our Christmas video when you're in the mood to make Easter. Nah, that's good. But I do love the fact. Were these still available? I missed it in the chat. I wasn't sure if the dies for this are still available.
They're about
Simon.
live.
Yeah.
You can order
Cool.
them and they're coming in.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, there you go. That's fun. Okay. It's always good to have because really, I think, well,
The hands are there because everybody loves the little hands.
I do love the little hands. They're fun. You can get them in different colors too. That's what's also fun. Bright colors, all sorts of fun colors. Okay. Let's move on. Now I did that. Now we're going to get into new stuff. I mean, that was kind of new, but I like doing that demo. It's so easy, but always fun. It is one of those techniques that every time I see sticky embossing powder and glitter, it's because you can use that for everything. Use it for Valentine's Day hearts, use it for your Christmas, use it for Halloween. It's a good one. It really, really is. Okay, I'm going to set this stuff here for now because at the end I'll probably want it all back so I can load up the table. Thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
Okay, so next up is talking about everyday stuff that you might have, or maybe even seasonal stuff that you bought for one season that you may have forgotten about. And that, of course, for me would be Christmas stuff. And I talked about this at Christmas, but hey, out of sight, out of mind. There are two pastes that Ranger does for Christmas. Luckily, this one did so well that now it's part of the everyday line. But this guy, this is Grit Paste Snowfall, is a translucent grit that has a little bit of a sparkle in it. It's great for snow. That's why we do it at Christmas for Snowfall. But it's also really great if you wanted to do textured, sugary things. Maybe through a stencil that you want to make it look like textured sugar eggs. Maybe you want to put it over a die cut. So I want to talk about how you can tint this stuff. So here is what the Grit Paste Snowfall looks like when you tint it. So you see what I mean? It kind of looks like that sugar. And I don't know if the camera never really picks up the sparkle of this, but it has a very subtle sparkle because it has some rock candy in it. You could, of course, sprinkle more rock candy over the top while this is wet if you want it to stick. But you can see these really beautiful colors that you can use for springtime. Again, that's Christmas. So if you have it and you stocked up, that's great. But a lot of places still sell it. But I'll talk about how easy it is to tint. The other one is Texture Paste Sparkle, one of my favorites, and thank you, Ranger, for making this part of the everyday line because we launched it at Christmas, and honestly, it's just really cool. It's super fun to work with. What this is a translucent paste, so you can see it's almost like glossy accents. It dries literally like resin. It's so shiny, but it has tiny little flecks of glitter that spread out. So it's not a glitter paste where it's completely saturated and solid with glitter. They kind of flecked out, again, like a vintage Formica table at a diner, right? Where you sit down and you see all those little flecks of glitter floating. I love this. It's flexible. So you could actually make paper like this and die cut it, or you can put it on your die cuts afterwards. But once I started inking this, this is when I said to Ranger, like, this needs to be an everyday product. Otherwise, you're just going to bring it back like every season, because it's great if you do black, like for Halloween. You can do gray if you want it to be kind of a misty, smoky background, or galaxy brown. I mean, I did every color, antique linen, old paper, even, I mean, look at that. Because what's crazy about it is that when you see it by itself, it's almost like a platinum-y glitter. You don't really know if it's a gold or a silver, but when you put it with a color, it just becomes sparkle. Isn't that wild? Like that. See, this preserves. I could just go on and on. Look at that, Uncharted Mariner. So if you're doing ocean, beachy things, and you want to add a little sparkle, you can apply this with a brush, your finger, palette knife, anything. So it is really nice that this one is available year-round, and I'm just going to show you how to tint it as soon as my brain lets me get through this rainbow. Oh, twisted citron, crushed olive, so good. Fossilized amber. I love all these colors. See, rusty hinge is really good. Squeezed lemonade, so nice. And the lighter colors, yeah, you see more of the kind of the darker metallic, but when the light hits it, look at the pinks. Picked raspberry, saltwater taffy. Ooh, spun sugar. Okay, here's how easy it is to tint either one of these, because it's done exactly the same way with the same products. You're going to want, you can work directly on a craft sheet or anything nonstick, or you can take a piece of palette paper or parchment, doesn't matter. You're going to want a palette knife to mix it up, and you're going to want some water-based reinkers that are dye. Okay, meaning Distress Oxide is not really going to be good for either one of these mediums, because it's not going to give it the translucency that both of these start out with. It will give it a milky consistency because of the pigment. So could you use it? Yes. Will it look like what I just showed you? No. No, that's like switching out an ingredient if you're cooking. Could you do it? Yes. Is it going to taste the same? No. Could you use alcohol ink? No, because that is a solvent and this is water-based. So you need a water-based reinker. You can use food coloring, but really a little bit of ink goes a long way. So let's make something. Let's do Salvaged Patina. That's a really pretty color. So I'll start with just Snowfall. Okay. They're beautiful through a stencil. I just saw like really through hearts or any of that. And I like to just kind of make it to order. So that's why I love this idea of not having to have a bazillion different colors of jars of paste. I just like having one and then use your mediums to color it. I mean, that to me is so much easier because you can mix up what you need and then just use it. So this has a little bit of press and seal because grit paste is very temperamental with sitting around. Okay, so you see I've just put some on there. You're going to take your reinker. You can always add more, but just start with a drop of ink. And it may not seem like much. You're like, what is that? You can always add more, but there's no takesies backsies unless you're adding more and more paste. And all you're going to do is just start mixing. So I'm just using my palette knife to kind of scrape, spread, scrape, spread, scrape, spread. See how quick it mixes? So you don't need to stir it, just use the palette knife. And then once you're happy with that color, I just kind of pick up all the ink. That's really why I like to work on just like deli paper. Look at that. Beautifully colored paste that when it dries will be perfectly sparkly yum. So
looks like delicious frosting.
Yeah, so like through a stencil, and you could even leave some color striations in there if you wanted to. I've seen people kind of do some great marbly things, but this is what's really,
That's beautiful.
yeah. And when it dries, that's what's going to give it more of that translucent, sparkly look. Simple, okay? We're just going to do the same thing with sparkle, just so you can see, because it's a quick thing. All right, let me fold this up. Could you use shavings from watercolor pencils? I saw that question. You can try, but those are pigment, and pigment is not as translucent as dye. But because it is a watercolor medium, it might work. I'm not sure how quick it will dissolve in either one of these mediums, but you can always try anything. My recommendation is a water-based ink, but that might work. You might get a whole nother use out of those shavings because it's still going to be a color. So here I'm just going to take some sparkle. You can see sparkle's totally different, right? I folded my palette paper, so I'm not into the grit. But yeah, play around with different colorants just to see. I'm just telling you, I know already that alcohol ink that doesn't work, because people have asked that in years, and it just separates the whole medium. But yeah, things like pencils, that could work. You could give it a shot. Here I'm just going to take a little Kitsch Flamingo. Again, start with a drop. You can always add more. And then we're just going to mix it up. Oh, this one's quick. Look how fast that goes. This one's a weird one when you first work with it, because I remember when I first got it to try it out, I'm like, this is nothing like I wanted, because as you can see, it's totally opaque, but it dries 100% translucent. That to me is always the magic. So when you mix it, keep that in mind, that it's going to be a see-through version of this color if you're using ink. Look at that. Now I'm going to spread it out really thin over here. There we go. And I'll keep it kind of thick over there. Just as it dries, well, hopefully it'll dry before the end of this live, and we'll see. I'll set it over here. Try to keep it in my sight just to make sure, but yeah, who knows with me. Out of sight is out of mind. Really, really fun. But yeah, I mean, a little bit goes a long way, and such a great use for those pastes. So maybe you did buy them at Christmas, but you haven't used them, or maybe you bought them for Halloween or whatever. Get those pastes out and tint them for the season, whatever it is you're doing. And what I like about this is, yes, you can use it to a stencil, you can do all of that, but you can also just spread it thin on a piece of cardstock, and then you can die cut it, because it remains pliable as long as it's really thin. If it's too thick, your dies are not going to want to go through it. You could obviously paste it after you do it, but that thin layer is really, really nice. Okay, so that was just tinting, texture, paste, Snowfall, grit paste, and sparkle. Move that out of the way. Ideas, ideas. I love reading the chat. I love how you guys just start, you know, that's the whole idea of this demo, is to get your brains just going. Well, like that watercolor pencil question. It's great. What if? I don't know. I didn't think about that. Could totally work. Okay. Next up is some new stuff. Like what could we do with stuff that maybe we've acquired this year? What could we do with that? I'm looking for a landing spot for stuff. Okay. Perfect. And Mario, if you want to bring those trays back like over here, that'd be great. Okay. Thanks, Mario. I'm like working over here, shifting so many things. Oh my word. Okay. Because we're going to finish with stamps. We know that Mr. Rabbit's going to show up. But first, we'll talk about this. Now, I want to revisit this, and here's why. This is the Vault collection from Sizzix. This is the paper Rosette, and I did what I felt was a pretty thorough demo when the Vault came out, but I know that many of you have received this die, you got it, you wanted to use it, and since then you've still struggled a little bit. So I'm going to try to demo maybe a little differently to show you some things to watch out for, and some things that are probably more important than you might think, but also share something fun, a new way to use the Rosette or a new paper. So for the packaging, I use scrapbook paper, okay, because I like the weight of that. And I really love working with this die, but there's other things that we can use in our stash, or maybe not, especially if you're a fan of ideology, to go from Rosettes being solid or striped or anything, especially if you're a little bit vintage lover. There's a product in ideology called Collage strips. And what these are, this is thinner than backdrop, so this is not the same weight as the ideology backdrops. It's more like ephemera paper. So it's pretty similar to scrapbook paper weight, okay? These come in a bazillion colors, the whole palette, and these were designed by Paula. Paula did an amazing job on the collage strips, because there's little snippets of things from photos to things from backdrops or ephemera or clippings, and they're great. So these are individual strips, okay? But they're perfect to make a rosette, because your rosette is a beautiful collaged rosette that took you seconds to do. It wasn't about making a collage and gluing and all of that. And even better is that you can do them in all the different colors. So you can have a pink one, you can do red, you can mix them. You can certainly do a whole rainbow rosette if you want. But because all of these come with the different colors, it's very easy to just take the colors of strips, put them together, and now you have a color themed rosette with a phenomenal vintage vibe. And I love the scale of these, to be honest. I love how this small print really lends itself to the pleats of the rosette, because it's like the perfect scale of that art to go over each one of those folds. I love the vintage one as well. So I'm going to take you through and talk about it. And Mario helped me with these. I'm like, I got somebody who's like, oh, I don't know, I'm not good at this. He goes, I've read all the things about rosettes. And I go, well, just watch how I show how to do it, and we're good to go.
They are so easy to make. I banged those out like nothing yesterday.
Once you figured it out, but the first time,
I just watched you.
The first time you were little thumbs,
yeah, well,
and I'm like,
I read how rosettes are this and that, but
they're easy to do.
Perfect.
All right, so here we go. I'm gonna kind of walk you through it and show how to create, because already it's a lot of questions going, well, that can't work. It's not the right size. It's not. It has to work because it's right here. So let me show you the trick. That's what the whole live is all about, is the tricks of creating. So the thing to know about the rosette die, and what I talked about, is that the rosette die is a section, okay? It's a section of metal, and you need 3 of them to make the full diameter of the rosette. So you need to cut this 3 times in order to make the rosette that's on the package. If you're going to make a small rosette, you could get away with maybe 2, but your rosette would need to be probably half the size, half the height of it. I still recommend, if you're going to use any more than that you want to have 3 sections to make the rosette. And when I talked about sections, that's what I meant. You don't have to use the full thing. So although the collage strip is not as wide as the full rosette, it's still over half, which means I'm going to make a beautiful rosette. It's just a little bit smaller diameter-wise, maybe by like a 1/4 inch of the biggest one, if you were to use the whole thing, because if you look where that paper goes, that's how much smaller that other rosette is. So it's still a great scale for cards, for party decor, for packaging. I mean, there's so many great things you can do with it. But here are some tricks that I want to share. Okay, I do love all these rosettes. Aren't they pretty? Like all these colors. Woohoo! So good. All right, let me get my sidekick out. So whenever I can use my sidekick, I'll be honest, I have the Vagabond and the Foldaway and the Switch, but whenever I can use my sidekick, I'm going to use my sidekick because it's creative convenience at its finest. I always like to spray 1 time on that little suction before I place it down. Use that little lever. It just makes it stick a lot better. And I kind of have it off frame, which is okay. Maybe I'll move it a little bit in. There we go. That'll be good. So here's what you're going to need to know when it comes to making this. We need to cut 3 of these strips. And for the most part, in collage strips, there's going to be 3 of most colors, but not all of them. So I used 2 packages open, so I made sure that I had enough yellow, because there's only 2. I needed a 3rd. So I did use 2 packages, but I have other strips. Does that make sense? So it's really important when it comes to expectation. I want you to be like, oh, he said you can do that. Yes, but like for some of the colors, I think it was purple, yellow, you needed 2 packs to get enough of those colors, okay? But you could also mix it up and do your own collage. But here's what we're going to do. Because we have to do 3 sections, 2 of them are already done because, don't need you to sit through all of it, but I'm going to show you how I did it. Here's what I think is important to remember. Your rosette needs to be the same height. So how you die cut something shorter, if you're not using the whole thing, is really important that it is consistent. Because if the strips vary in height, it's going to be incredibly challenging to make the rosette. So here's the whole trick of everything when it comes to working, and that is just to have a plan. Have a plan figured out. So what I've used on my cutting pad is called sticky grid. Now you can get sticky grid in small sections. Well, I think they may have discontinued the small ones, but I just use the large sheets, which normally is for a standard cutting pad, and I cut it down. Here's like the whole sheet is what it looks like. I don't know if, oh yeah, I do. I have my sheet. So that's what started out, the sheet in the pack. And then I just went in and cut it at like, I think it's just about 2.5 wide, wide enough for my cutting pad. The next thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to use a longer cutting pad. Okay, sidekicks come with the standard, that'd be this size. and we do sell extended cutting pads for the Sidekick. That is the size difference. The reason I did this is because there are some longer dies. There's wildflower dies. There's all of those things that you may want that cutting pad to be a little bit longer, and so that's why we did them. The extended ones are sold separate. Do you have to use an extended? No, the Rosette will fit on the standard one, but I'm going to explain why I wanted to use the extended one. Again, you don't have to, but I just want to explain why I'm doing it the way I did it. So sticky grid, when you get it, it's got the release paper on both sides. You cut it, then you peel it off, you stick it onto the surface, and you peel the other side off, and it's repositionable. It's really meant for die cutting. It's not necessarily meant for heat embossing or anything because it gets a little gunky, but the adhesive remains. If you're gonna make several of them, maybe not even the same day, it's a good idea to store it just with the other cutting pad over the top of it, because that's gonna keep the dust off of the sticky. Again, if you're making several of them and you're coming back. If not, you would just disassemble this when you're done. So here's how I set mine up. I place a sticky grid on one of the cutting pads, the smoothie one, okay, because now my blades are facing up, because you can cut face up or down on a die cut machine. It really doesn't matter. Then what I wanted to do is I wanted to line it up where there was a minimal gap between the top of the scallop and one of the grid lines. So I'm not concerned about the bottom. Again, I'm not concerned about the bottom line, because your brain would tell you, line this up on one of the grid lines. That's how you use sticky grid. No, we want to have a little gap, and you'll see why in just a second. Then I wanted to just square it up on one of the edges, so I knew that my die was kind of squared up with the edge of the die and the top of the scallops. Does that make sense? You can see it's just a little gap. So even the scallops are not touching that line. Here's why. You're going to take your collage strip. The collage strip is longer, so you actually have a little bit of some creative freedom. You could be like, okay, I want this section so I have more of the photo. Oh, you know what? I can do it this way. It's totally up to you. You can have it right side up, upside down. There's no direction to the typography of a rosette when it comes to using collage strips. So here's what you're going to do when you've made up your mind, okay? I normally start on the tab side, but it doesn't matter what side you want to start on. And all I want to do is I want to place it to make sure that my paper is over the edge of the die just a little bit, and that it lines up to that top grid line. See how you can see the grid line? So I know if my paper's on the grid line, it's covered that die, correct? Make sense? So I can visibly see it. Once I have it lined up, and I'm just going to do it properly on the bottom. So I don't care about this grid line here. I just want to make sure it's over the edge of the die. Line it up to that little line. Once my paper is lined up, now I can use that excess space on the extended pad to hold my paper. If you don't have this extra sticky exposed, like if you had one of the shorter ones, now you have to worry about like taping your paper down and keeping it from shifting, because if it shifts, you're going to have a crooked rosette. Does that make sense? So see how my paper is just lined up to that top line? The sticky grid is holding that paper down. Then you're going to take your pad and I just slide it over the top, because the paper is just going to allow this to slide. And then we're going to run it through the Sidekick. Do, 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 do. Simple, simple. All right. Then we take that off. We peel this off. So you'll have that. See that little gap? Perfect. And we have this piece. Perfect. Damn. And we leave this on and you do it again and do it again, because all you have to remember is lining up your paper to the top line. Where it is left to right is irrelevant. You could have even centered the paper. I just prefer to have enough paper on either side that I can stick it onto the grid. That's also why I kept my die in the middle, because maybe when I put my collage strip down, maybe I liked more this side. So then I would have stuck it down here. It doesn't really matter what end of the rosette you start with, as long as you're able to secure your paper. I hope that makes sense. But to me, that makes it easy. And then you can just really leave it here until you need to use it for something else. That to me is the easiest. So now we'll get into rosette assembly. The cool thing about doing it this way is you're left with this little nugget. Now this one's not really great unless you're into hands, but depending on the section of paper, that section is going to be big enough to cut your medallion. So because we have to cut 3 strips out of 3 squares, we only need 1 medallion. I used that smaller one. That's going to be this size right here. So I didn't use the big one. I used a smaller one, and it just fits perfectly in that leftover space. So because we're cutting 3 of the same color, you'll have one, I'm sure, that you can cut the center out. Make sense? Okay, so far so good. We're on it, guys. We get it. So that was one of my leftovers. I really liked it. I liked having that little butterfly piece. But we're making use of the stuff, and it's so much easier than you think. Okay, so for the folding, this is what I was saying to Mario, like, just watch my hands, okay? Because I showed him, and then he did. I'm like, nope, watch my hands again. The easiest way, in my opinion, to fold a rosette is start with the tab on the top. Tab on the top. Then
This really is easy.
You're using your index fingers and your thumbs for both hands, and you're using your middle finger from both hands as the brace. And all we're doing is we are pushing away. Away. And don't start saying, well, Tim, it's an accordion fold, it's zigzag. Get out of your head. Listen. Fold away. Because Mario's like, but no, it goes the other way. I'm like, listen, fold away. And by using both fingers, because if I just did it with one, see how it doesn't want to fold, and now you could go off the rails. But by using, and it takes getting used to, it really does. But if you get in the habit of just using all 4 of those fingers and making that fold, you'll be able to take this paper and fold. So now we folded them all the same way, but we made clean folds. See, we didn't need a tool. You could use an acrylic block. I think in the Sizzix one, I talked about folding against an acrylic block, but you really don't need to. If you use these 4 fingers and these 2 in the back, it's perfect. Okay, once you do that, then you start by bringing the tab towards you. Okay? Then you can easily just accordion fold it. It does what it does. Because you've already made the folds, it's happy. Paper has no memory. Look at that. Simple. And you always have to start the same way. So that's why I always talk about having that tab there, because all 3 pieces need that end tab going the same way in order to make the rosette. Super important, okay? Then what I do is I add some score tape to all the tabs. So I've done it to this one. You can get score tape in different widths. Could you use liquid glue? Yes. Could you use hot glue? Yes. I just prefer score tape because it's fast. Because again, I would be doing compartmental stuff. What you want to do is only put it on this tab. So I'll work on my craft sheet part. I'll lay that score tape down, push it to the end, rip it off, and that's it. I just tear it. I don't care that some is sticking over. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need to use scissors. You can go super fast. This whole thing could be quick repetition. It goes together incredibly fast. Okay. Once you're done, we're going to make the rosette. Now, if you're an inker, which you know I am, my advice is to ink first, just the medallion. I prefer to do the rosette when it's assembled because I like the color hitting the high points differently, but I only ink the medallion. The reason I need to do it is because the medallion is part of the assembly, how I assemble it. That's what I'm showing you. Are you saying like there's reasons for all this?
Yeah.
Because there really is.
But it's so simple.
Yes.
If you just really...
If you listen.
Listen and pay attention.
Yes. That's all.
That's why you got 2 ears.
Well, that's right. Because again, like having I just think having a little bit of understanding in there, it does make things way, way easier. Okay. So I'm going to take some scorched timber because I like it. I'm going to take a tiny blending tool because it's tiny things for tiny tools, and it just inks so much easier. Done. Ink the edges. So nothing on the table, no big circular motions, just flick, 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 flick. That's what makes this little tiny tool so easy to use. Okay, so this is inked. We ready to go? We're ready to go.
We're ready.
I'll just move this out of frame. Hopefully you'll see the space. I'll move this sheet in more because I want you just to see how it's glued. Because when I did this, I love really Mario helping me because he's not a maker. He makes in the kitchen. He makes amazing food, but his jam is not crafting. No. But when I explain stuff to him and I see him having like those aha moments, I'm like, look, if he gets it and he doesn't really even care about the craft, a maker will definitely get it. Easy. Okay. Right. Next up, craft pick. Why a craft pick? A craft pick should have a sharp point. You could use a die pick, but a die pick should have a blunt point. So this is going to be really a sharp point. The reason is because I don't have fingernails, and I just find that so much easier to get the tape off. So you just take that, and all you have is like static charge of release paper, which I just obviously let go wherever you want. So that sharp point just takes that off. Super simple, right? Okay, next up, we're going to connect these. So we have all the tape off, and now we're just going to connect. To connect, we have the tab and we have the flat end to the other one. And these are going to interlock. See how they're going opposite direction? They're going to interlock. The easiest way to do this, and I don't know if I can do this in the air. I'll talk about it, but then I'm going to go and place it down. You're going to take this edge and you're going to put it into the fold first. There's a good visual. See that little fold? It knows its place. If you try to just glue them down flat, you're probably going to miss a line and your rosette's a little wonky. So if you put this edge into that little channel, it helps you line up. So I'll just do this on the craft mat. So I put that in there. You'll see me like slide a little bit, and then I just use the pad of my finger and push that down, and that's it. It's lined up. It's perfect. So again, take that, put it in that little channel, little ziggity zag. I use my finger to make sure the back is lined up, and then you just push down. Now if you make a mistake, the tape is nice because you can peel it apart. So far we've done all three, and now we just need to bring these together. Same rules apply-ish. Okay, this one is kind of a mid-air one because you hook up the channel and push it down. Done. Like, it couldn't be easier. Now, the other thing to remember about the rosette, one side scallop, one side is straight. You always want to put the scallops down. If it's your first time using a rosette, get the feel before you get out the glue. Get the feel. The feel is gathering the top with your fingers and bringing it all together, and don't worry that it wants to do a dance. You can't control this. I say this because Mario's like, he was just like, what? How is this even going together? I'm like, don't worry about the dance. Just grab it from the top and push it down to the table. It will cooperate. And before you know it, there it was. He's like, oh my gosh, you did that. I'm like, yes. But when you first go to do it, like you're trying for it to make sense instead of using your fingers, and just push that down to the table. Okay, so here's the key thing, because you're going to watch different videos and everyone's going to have a different opinion, okay? And that's fine. You do you. That's what I tell people. In this die set, I provided 2 circles. The circles could be the centers, but they're also more for a base, because for whatever reason, people felt they needed like a base to glue on. I don't use the base when I make rosettes. I use a non-stick mat. That to me is the easiest, okay? What you're going to do is the following. Are we ready? Hopefully you can see this. I'll do it as close to I can so you can watch. Using a hot glue gun, you're going to create about a dime-sized blob of glue. So not a little dot and not scribbled out like a blob, okay? So I'm just taking my glue gun, 1, 2, probably about 3. See that blob? Looks about the size of a dime. Take the rosette, again, scallop down, so we haven't really moved it. And here's the key. We're going to grab that around that glue dot. See? We're going to go into the dot and out, and in and out. You do this about 3 times, because that's getting hot glue in between all the papers as well. And now you've got this big blob of glue sticking out of the top, okay? I take these and I just take that little hand and I place it down over the top, okay? And what that's doing is that's flattening out that blob of glue. I do not put the medallion in right now. You could, but it's going to have a bump over the top of it because all that glue shot out the top of your rosette, right? So when you put the middle on, the middle is kind of domed. It's totally up to you. But this is kind of like a handle. It gets in there. You could use a spatula. Maybe you have a little finger thing, whatever you want to do. And then give this just a second to cool. I kind of touch the hand to make sure that if the hand is hot, then usually the glue is hot. And then you're just going to take this and you're going to remove it. So now my glue is flat. My rosette is cool. It's still on the paper. It's probably hot underneath, but the part I need to work with is cool. Now I can put the center on. That's why I wanted it inked already, so I can just finish the job. Again, I like to use hot glue, but this time I'll just use a little scribbly amount. See, a little scribble, because I want it to catch many things of the rosette, not just one part in the middle. Then I'll just use my hand just to kind of flatten it. Right? I don't need to brayer it. I just place it down. Once that's done, you're just going to see if your rosette is ready, you're just going to give it a twist. And it should just twist right off of your craft sheet. That's it.
I'm telling you,
it's done.
So easy and so fun.
It's zippity-doo. And if you had everything cut and everything folded and everything taped, and you're just like,
and I did, and
you're
I did,
done.
And I did.
Then you're done. And if you, then I like to just go with the tiny tool and do the inking, because see how it just kind of hits those a little different. I don't want everything to be super dark edged. I just like it to look a little worn. Could you add glitter to this? Yes. Could you do resist spray? Yes. Could you do all sorts of things? Yes. You can put different things in the center. You could do a bird. You could do anything you want, but this is like already finished. So you don't have to have this in the center ever, right? I think it was Tifa did like the Mr. Rabbit with the rosette behind him. You could do a bird. You could do all sorts of things, but it's just, hopefully this makes it easy. But following those things is what's important, because people go, I tried to make a rosette, it's tearing. Did you use 3 strips? No. Okay, well that's the first thing. Oh, well, now my rosette's popping apart. Did you tape the edges together? No, I use a glue stick. Okay, that's a problem. Well, I'm trying to put it together and it keeps bouncing back open. Did you use this? No, I use this kind of glue. Or I did use hot glue. Okay, but did you use enough? And more importantly, you can't just do hot glue and push it down, because you saw how springy that rosette was. It wants to explode. So when you use that dime amount of glue, kind of going in and out with your hands is really putting all that hot glue in between every single one of these pleats. That's what's holding it together. That's what makes this a solid foundation to do what you want with it. Makes it really, really easy. So hopefully this part makes it simple, because we did it from start to finish. And now you know, from collage strips to really to any kind of paper. But I think these are so colorful and fun. And yeah, I can imagine people actually mixing up their collage strips and like doing little sections in a rainbow. Because could you do that? Sure. You could just take little snippets of that and just tape them along the back. Because the die blade, like if you had your things taped, remember there's no blade here. So even if you had different sections of color taped together, it's still going to die cut. Doesn't matter. It's just, you have to see like where that tape seam ends, but it should be totally fine. Good fun. So that's what I wanted to share from a rosette aspect. Cool. Next, let's see. Gosh, I have so much stuff to do. Well, let's see. Where are we time-wise? Oh, we're doing pretty good. I say pretty good. Yeah, let's talk about this next, because I had so much fun with this one. Okay, I got a basket of fun. So sometimes when I talk about inspiration, it's important to be mindful that inspiration is everywhere. And if you're surrounded by the right people and you're in a great creative space frame of mind, you know that inspiration is meant to be shared. Not everyone agrees with it, and to me, those people that don't want to share inspiration shouldn't be posting inspiration, right? There's a few of those, but for the most part, this community is amazing as far as how it inspires people. Someone I met on Instagram, she's from Finland, Riikka is her name. I'm not really good at the whole R thing, but Mario can post a link to her Instagram. She made this card and posted it last year, and I loved it. And I commented, I'm like, that is the cutest card I've ever seen. And she sent it to me from Finland. So thank you again, Riikka. And if you remember, for Halloween, when I posted all of these bats, the little bat balloons for Halloween, she made these as well. I commented and she sent them to me. And they're super inspiring. And I love inspiration, and I love to see how people use product. That to me is what's incredibly cool about how makers make. And so Riikka inspired me to actually use this idea in a different way. But nonetheless, I love how she took one of the ideology portraits and she did all her own fancy pen work. I'm not talented like that. I couldn't even draw bunny ears or eggs. And I know people are like, oh, you could. I really can't. But I'm okay with that, right? You know what you know, and that's totally fine. The thing to remember about ideology, especially when it comes to photos, is that myself and Paula have a serious addiction when it comes to photos and what we find, and that's why there's many photo SKUs. But I think in a case like this, it's great that we have all these photo SKUs because there's different scales of photos. We have the paper doll portraits, these are big. Paper dolls, which could be solos, groups. There's small paper dolls. There's all sorts of different photo SKUs that are silhouette cut. In the world of Sizzix, if you are a die collector, there's many different dies that have ears, right? This could be Hippity Hop, or maybe you have the original one or the bigger one. Then, of course, there were bunny games, or maybe you have the Vault Bunny and Chick, or maybe you have the Stitch Rabbit, or maybe you even have this guy. They all have different ears that, depending on what you're going for, or what you even have, you can take these, take your little pictures, and see what works, right? You can look at that and go, okay, well, those are way too big. Okay, maybe I need to go to something a little bit smaller. Oh, that seems like a better scale. But then, you know, maybe on, oh, see, that's hilarious too. The groups just, they totally change how you see things, right? Look at that. Oh my gosh, hilarious. This guy, he's probably, those are a little small, so maybe I need to go to this one, because remember, this die has not only the detail, but the silhouette layer. So, oh my gosh, see, that's hilarious. So if you have different dies, you can really have good fun with this. So what I wanted to do was pull out some of my favorite photos, and my favorite photos in ideology are Photomatics. I just love them. I love that it has a background. You know, I don't have to worry about collage or anything else. And I love this. And that was my inspiration to create these tags inspired by Riikka's card. So again, it's the idea. I'm like, I love that. I love the spots in the background. I need to create a way to do it. And I had a blast doing it. Not only did I create some bunnies, and I'll show some fun techniques using pencils, but it also gave me the opportunity, and Paul is going to know this as well because I've talked about this forever. We have two SKUs in ideology that are called Small Talk, Snarky. And I've always said that one of these days I just want to do a live where I get to read every one of these Snarkies. Now, not everyone is into snark. I get it. Some people are easily offended. That's fine. But nonetheless, there is a place in our world for Snarky. And I think these are hilarious to send to friends, coworkers. That's really who you make for with Snark. Now, Snarky comes in Small Talk, which are smaller stickers, again in black and white, and also Big Talk, and it's different Snark. So the big and the small contain some different things, but it allowed me to take something that was quite silly and have fun with it. So like for this guy, where's the unsubscribe button on adulthood? Perfect for him. I have absolutely no desire to fit in. Great. I've got a good heart, but this mouth, yeah, I know the words. I'm not childish. You're just a big duty head. That's hilarious. So fun to smile. I know, it was so cute. It was so perfect for that. Snarky, like, really, when can you use duty head? That's so good on that. It was absolutely hilarious just to kind of, you know, look like this one's, hey, train wreck, this isn't your station. I love that. That's super, that's just fun. Yeah, you can just go on and on. I see this was good too. She could see no reason to act her age, or he could see no reason to act his age. Yeah. One of us is right, the other one is you. I do this thing called what I want. Yeah, I love that. I'm not arguing, I'm explaining why I'm right. See, I think that's really good, correct? Yeah, did you have to eat the whole bowl of stupid? I think I need to use that on one. Those are fun. So that's really where we're going with this demo. And I'm going to demo the tag from start to finish and just kind of show you like how it evolved, because I had a good time. The hardest thing was like picking out the right kind of ears, because I wanted them to be silly, but not necessarily cartoony. So this is the Vault Bunny. Those are the ears that I use. Again, I already talked, you can go through whatever dies you want, but to me, this was a great size for these Photomatics, just because these bunny ears are bigger than the previous ones, okay? So these might be good for photo booth because they're a little bit smaller. Not significantly, but scale, again, you do you. But I love the fact that I was able to utilize this vault. So that's the die for all the ears that I use, because I just use the same ears because you know me, I'm all about repetition. Okay, now that I've talked through all the ingredients, let's get into the fun make part of it all. Okay. So I used some number 5 tags. I love number 5s. It's just that's the smaller size than a typical number 8. So that's the size that we're using. But again, you can do whatever. But I love the idea of having all of these tiny little tags. Let me get these things out of the way. I'll just hand this off to you. You don't mind, Mario?
No, I got it.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, so there's our die
You need this
that I
back?
used. No, I'm good. And I've already done the prepping, so you don't need to see me cut out the ears, but I'll talk about everything that I did to prep. So for these, you thought that I just wanted it to be simple. Repetition to me is really good, especially if something inspires me and I want to make, even if I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I think that's another thing. People are like, I don't know what to do with this. It doesn't matter. This is for the fun of the make. You'll find things to use them on. And they can be as simple as like a bag of candy. And you buy a bag of candy at the store and you tie this on and there you go. Boom, handmade gift. It's that simple. So you don't have to overthink the make of it all. What I wanted to do was create some very quick backgrounds because I knew I was going to do a lot. And I wanted these to be light enough that I could see color, but also have some fun pattern to it. I didn't want to just use the plain tag. So quickest backgrounds are going to be sprays. Just easier than ink pads, but you could do this with ink pads, but a spray is just easier, okay, in my opinion. So I'll take a tag. We'll just take one. I used Antique Linen Lost Shadow. No surprise, because very light colors. But you could do this and maybe you wanted to have a pink tag or whatever. Use any colors you want, but lighter colors are what's going to give you a light background without the need to add a lot of water, all right? So working here on the craft sheet, you could work in a splat box, but you'll see why I don't. I wanted to actually use the craft sheet. I keep feeling like I'm sliding in and out of frame because I want you to see the craft sheet and then I don't. There we go. That's all right. So I'm just going to start with some Lost Shadow and I'm just going to spray the tag. So you can see one, I got some color and then I just went in and splattered. To control it, a full spray is going to give you a spray. A slow spray is what's going to give you the splatter. So that's just what I did. See how easy it is, or if I want more, okay? Then I'll take some Antique Linen. This one, I'm probably going to go more for the splatter. So that means I'm slowly or reluctantly pushing down the trigger and it just automatically does this. Some people take out the schnozzle and flick it on. Go for it. You do you. But I'm just good with that, okay? Then we're going to heat it up. And it's important that you see what the ink looks like on here. That's why I want to stay zoomed in so you can see what's happening as the ink's working. I'm going to start drying this. Yes, I have overspray. I want that. Then while this is drying, I'm just going to take a little bit of water and I'm going to just spray it in a couple of areas. So not a lot, just enough to see how it just kind of gave it a little bit of movement there. You could pick up the tag, you can move it around, but the easier way is just you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So don't overthink the ink. You're going to cover up most of this, okay? So we're just going to dry this. Now, as I'm drying it, most of this is dry. You can see that a lot of it's starting to dry. I still have some puddles. That's okay. If you have too much water in an area or a place like in the middle where I don't need a lot, I'm just going to go in and just dab it with a towel. I like that. But you'll also see that around here I've got some little leftover spray. I'll just take this tag and I'm just going to press it down in some of that leftover spray and dry it. I'll show you what it did. But that little bit of spray without any water, because it just makes it simple because we used a spray stain, is what's going to give me all those little speckly flecklies, I like to call them. Little bits, little tiny dots. Different than the drips, just a little flecks because it's picking up just that little overspray, which are very small. See, there's a couple other little speckles. It's almost like little splatters, but that's fine. And that's it. The background is done. And because I've already cleaned up the ink, I just put down the next tag and repeat, and the next, and repeat. You don't have to clean up. You don't need to do any of that. Now, if I'm doing more, I wouldn't dry this completely. I would just set it aside to dry and come back to it. But because I'm going to use it in this demo, that's why I'm drying it completely. And when I'm drying it completely, you'll notice I'm holding it off the edge from the mat because it's allowing the heat to pass through it. It's doing two things. One, it's drying the tag in half the time. And two, it's keeping the tag flat. People always get nervous when they spray stuff and they're like, oh, my tag is curling on my cardstock. If you're drying things flat, heat rises. So when you heat up the paper, your paper starts to curl as it's drying. If you get in the habit of like holding your paper up as you're drying, it just stays a little flatter. Nonetheless, we can always smooth it out. But I need my layer to be dry, so no moisture before we go to the next part. Excellent. Okay, there's our background. Simple, right? Easy. Next, we're going to add some fun dots. The dots, yes, I know a lot of people are like, they're just dots. You can draw dots and you can draw wonky dots. I cannot, but a stencil can. So if you can draw wonky dots, which obviously Riikka can do that, I cannot, then just draw them. But I found a stencil made it, again, easy for repetition, because once I had it set up, I was ready to go. I'm just going to spray the mat off with a little bit of water, use a paper towel because I want to make sure there's no ink, because I need things to grip. Let me grab a little piece of grip. It could be whatever, really whatever size you want to work on, because I still like to use tape. I'm just going to grip some to the mat. Perfect. I've got my tag and I've got my stencil. Now, I've made several of these already, so I kind of have a little system, but I just line up my tag to the top of the grip. You could have a smaller piece of grip if you want. The stencil is bigger than what you need, so all I did was just kind of pick a dot that was in the center that I liked. I think maybe that's what I did. And then I'll just look to the left or the right and just kind of center-ish the stencil. You guys see that? Perfect. Okay. Once that's kind of centered, I'm just going to use some tape. And I know a lot of people are anti-tape stencilers because they want the full thing to grip. That's fine. If that's what you prefer, do it. I prefer to kind of have a little hinge option, you know, to check what I'm doing and kind of come back to it. In the case of pencils, because I want my stencil to sit down a little bit flatter and still have the ability to look at it, I'm just going to place that down and just put another piece of tape at the bottom. Okay, so here's what I'm going to use for coloring. You could use a lot of things. You can go with a paint, a blending tool, crayons, do whatever you want for colors, but pencils were a quick way, an easy way to do this. I sharpened my pencils. That made it really easy as well. And then I just went in and kind of figured out a pattern. So I already knew that because I was using a photo, it was going to take out the center. So I only needed to do this on the top and the bottom instead of doing the whole tag and covering up your work. How many times have you done that where you spent all this time doing it and then you cover it up? So if you already know what you're doing, get a plan in place and say, okay, well, I need to stencil like 3 rows and 2 rows, and it's good because the middle is going to be covered up. Perfect. So I'll just start with a pencil and I'm just going to color into that circle. And I'm really random as far as my coloring. So I'm just, you'll see that's what makes them look so scribbly-do. That's really what I'm doing. Just taking the pencil. Now this one around the reinforcer, it's got a little bit of a speed bump. Just go with it. You're fine. Take that, little scribble on the color. So you can fill it in solid or you can leave a little space. That's fine. We'll add some purple. So could you keep doing all the dots? Yes. I just did 2, 3, 2. But again, do what works for you. Then at the bottom, I know I need to do 3 and 2. But once you have a plan, it does. It makes it so much easier to go in and do this. And when I colored my tags, they're random. So I didn't do like pink the same spot every time. You could, but that would require thought. And thinking is overrated. I truly believe that. I think so many times as makers, we get into our head, and I don't know if that's just a social media thing, if that's, you know, watching so many videos where they're like, you must do it this way. I think it's important if it's a technique to understand the instructions, but when it comes to the creative play, I think you need to have fun playing. So now I've just scribbled in some dots. Now, do you think I could draw around a circle? You would be wrong, because I can't. I think, oh, I'm just going to draw a quick circle. I can't even do that. So, black pencil, which is also why I like to have extra black and white. So I'm just going to take that and just use the pencil and quickly go around the circle of color. Like, I'm not trying to, you know, go 5 or 6 times. I just want it to be as sketchy, random as possible. But this is keeping me in the bike lane. Then I can take this, take a look before things go up. I'm happy with it. So now I can just flip that up. I've got some pencil dust on there, so I'm just going to flick that off to the side, but then there you go. That's your tag. That totally looks hand done, doesn't it? Well, it was hand done, but it's so much easier than if I try to make those scribbly circles and do that fun drawing. I just couldn't do it. I'd be all over the place. They look like balloons or jelly beans. I'm good with that. So I love the idea of a stencil used in a way that is going to help you achieve what you want to achieve. So if I was doing another one, because I'd have all my ink tags, I already knew, okay, put it there, flip that down. So you get the idea, and you don't need to clean your stencil in between. It's not going to be marked with, so it doesn't matter that the last time you used pink there, you can use yellow and so on. So that's how easy the background tag was. So far, so good? Yes, excellent. Okay, move this off. You doing okay, Mario? Okay, good.
I'm watching.
They're good. It's fun. It's fun to see. Okay, so once we have our tag, we need to talk about photos and ears. Now, for the photos, well, they're all good. I mean, I just didn't know which one I wanted because I really liked her, but I really liked him. I think I'm going to go with him because he seems like he's up to no good. Or maybe he's a train conductor, so the hey train wreck, this isn't your station could be really good. So you can use a paper trimmer, you can leave the edge on here, but one of the things that we try to do when it comes to photo booth and Photomatic, Chris, who is our graphic guru, really tries to retain that original grunginess of these photos. We keep this big edge because if you have a tonic decal trimmer, you can cut a deckled edge around these. But I just like to trim off. I like to go up pretty close to the edge of black, but leave a little bit there. And then you can use, well, you can use whatever you want. You can use the edge of a glass mat. If you have a paper distresser, just give it one swipe. You know, you don't have to get all back and forth grungy, just kind of give it a swipe. I like to tatter the edges a little bit. Okay, so that's it for the photo. For the ears, couldn't be easier. I just took some distressed watercolor cardstock, applied a little Xyron, just some adhesive to the back, and then die cut it. So now all of my ears that I have are all sticky. They're ready to go. So when you're doing this, you don't have to overthink that either. You can just take your piece of white cardstock, put it in there, and just go. Just go with it. And then you'll have a whole pile of bunny ears, peel and stick. You can use glue, you can do whatever you want, but having peel and stick makes it, in my opinion, so much easier, so much quicker. String, also easy for the tag. For the cheeks, well, one of the things I really loved, going back to, where did I put Riikka's card? I just had it. Oh, here it is, right here. I love that. I love the silliness of the dots. So you can do paint, you can do pencils. I just chose a little bit of crayon because I wanted some cheeks, but I didn't want them to look like the polka dots I drew. The pencil wasn't giving me the same look that I was going for. So here's what I did with the crayon. And you can do a lot of things. Here's my little bag of ears, just so you can see my thought process when I talk about it. Because I plan on making more. I start with watercolor cardstock, a sheet of it. I run it through Xyron and put permanent adhesive on the back. So it's like sticker paper, if you will. Then I figure out how much space I need for the part of the die that I'm going to cut. So in the case of this rabbit, I'm not cutting this whole thing. I only need the ears. So I place it onto my medium mat. I'm like, okay, I need like 1.25 inches. Great. That's it. That's my space. Because you can turn the die to fit that, and then you just run it through and you cut a bunch of ears, or they could even be little ear hats to go on a paper doll. Kind of like Mickey ears, but they're bunny ears. So that's really what I did when it comes to, creating the ears. And again, when everything's out, it's just repetition. You cut and you go and you make them. So you can switch up whatever you want. Then for that little bit of coloring, can you see there's like a little bit of pink and a little bit of edging? Simple. You could use the crayon if it was out, or you could use a pencil. I wanted the pink to be pretty subtle, so I just took that pencil and just kind of drew a line. You could watercolor if you want. The inking around the edges, same tiny tool, same scorched timber, because I just like that outline. Scorched timber has been kind of a new favorite edger because it's like edging in black, but it's not as harsh because it just creates a nice little shadow. So that's what I did for the ears. Couldn't be easier, right? Okay. Before I assemble them though, I want to have my tag kind of kind of tattered up a little bit as well. So this is where I am going to use that tiny tool just to ink the edges. And I like to just stay in one spot and just move the paper. You could go, you can move your hand all the way around, but this is just so much faster. You just, it's quick, right? So if you're like doing this, moving your hand, it becomes awkward. So if you kind of get in the habit of using that space and just moving it around, it does go really quick. So now we've inked the edges of that, which in my opinion makes it stand out a little bit. If you want to ink the edges of the photo, you can. I just like leaving most of that kind of white. I think that's good. So now we have to kind of figure out what we want to do and where we want to put him. Well, I think for him, I'm sure it's shocking to anyone that knows me that I've actually stuck things down wonky, but I was going in that full wonky motion. So I love the fact that these were just a little crooked. So I'm going to take that. I'll use a tiny attacher and just tiny attacher puts the tiniest little staples in there. Could you glue it? Yes. Could you foam tape it? Yes. You could do all those, but I love just what it does. It gives it a kind of a handmade look. Back to our ears. Once they're done, that's why I like to leave the little head on there, because it gives me something just to cut the ears off. It gave me something that was a little bit more stable to ink. Notice I inked the ears when they were together, not when they're separate, because that's too fiddly for me. But I do want to cover the bottom where I just cut. That makes it easy. And I've used the same ink on this tiny tool. I haven't had to go back and add more ink. That's another benefit to it. So let's add the ears. Well, we already know what takes off paper backing the easiest. That's going to be that pick. So now I'll just go in, peel that off. I do this a lot with, oh my gosh, he's hilarious. Just already. Because see, you can maneuver the ears. And that's another reason why I like using the adhesive.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it's like perfect little parts right there.
It is.
But see, if you didn't like it, you can just peel it off and move it. So another reason why I don't like glue. He's hilarious. Yes, he's fun. So now we'll get a little snark. I think I liked, hey, Trainwreck, this isn't your station. And you could do, again, black and white with black or black with white. It's the same selection of sentiments. It just depends. I chose black because I don't have to ink them. So that made it pretty easy. I don't know. I meant to behave, but there were too many other options. See, I like that one too. I think I'm going to use that one instead. See? Just change your mind. So there we go. I want to behave, but there were too many other options. So you just go in and figure out your break. So we'll start with that. I meant to behave. And then I just kind of see, but there were too many other options. Yeah. So wherever you want the break, just use your scissors and cut it. And you can overlap them however you want to create with these. Stick that down. Meant to behave, but there were too many other options. All right, now we'll just take some string. And you could glue them. I mean, it just depends on if you, like my fingers are super inky. So a little tip is if you're going to use stickers, you should wash your hands first, because just the slightest amount of ink on your fingers, once you touch the back of that adhesive, it's not a sticker. See, it's just a placer, but that's right. Because you just put it in place and then it just goes. It doesn't really stick. Yeah. So there we have it. Pretty simple, right? And fun. Like, so a shout out again to Riikka. Thank you for the inspiration of, sending a card and then just creating all these fun Easter tags. Get out your dies, and you could stamp the back of your backgrounds if you don't want to do stencils. I just thought that whole penciling thing was good. I always admire people that can just pick up an art tool. I see Dina all the time where she can just pick up a brush and just create magical shapes in no time. But they really are just so much fun to do. And if you want to make this into a card, you don't even have to do the string. You can just stick it right onto a card front. It's hilarious. Or you can put another tag behind it and make a card that's a tag. So, let's add the cheeks. I didn't add the cheeks to this one. I'm like, I got the crayon here. All right, let me find my little cotton swab. Learn this trick from Paula. Just take that. She probably doesn't do it this way, but I know she uses cotton swab. So I'm just going to take this, pick up some crayon. This is spun sugar. I'm choosing crayon because it's just creamier and it's more silly, I guess. It's, you know, it's not, this is really meant to be silly. This isn't to be like blended and pretty like Paula's. I just think that's funny. Really totally mimics that idea. Great. So fun. So there you go. Distress crayon and a Q-tip for cheeks. Yeah, unless you luck out and you already have one that's done. Really fun. But that was another thing to keep in mind when it comes to looking at your stash, looking at the things that you have, especially if you're into stencils. You know, finding stuff that has a huge surface area is really great. It's great if you're going to do paste and all that, but it's also fun to just look at it and say, okay, well, this is a nice grid pattern, so I am able to kind of skip some spaces, and I love that this is wonky. So it does give me that like wonky dot look. So maybe go into your stencils and see which ones can create new patterns that you haven't done. Anyway, that's good fun. Good fun for creating that. All right. Moving on, because there's still some stuff to move on to. Believe it or not, we're gonna talk about Mr. Rabbit, because why not? He's great, and I saw so many people got their Mr. Rabbit. Those that ordered it,
awesome.
Yeah, he's really fun. All right, just using a little water, just to clean up, just because you never know what's down there. Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about this great stamp set. A shout out to Stampers Anonymous for letting me do another single release. You know, we have other releases coming this year, and they're full on releases with a lot of sets. But I talked about this, like for True Love, I always wanted to do a Valentine's set around Valentine's Day. And for this one, I wanted to do Easter. But my everyday Stampers Anonymous release isn't until April, and well, Easter would have passed. So really nice of Ted and the team to just let me do another set, because when I found this art of Mr. Rabbit, I loved it. I wanted him to be big like the professor, because I think he could be used so many different ways. I used some of my vintage Easter ephemera to scan in and create these fun just Easter typography things. And this was inspired by that wonky dot stencil, because if you look at the stamp, it is wonky. It's got all those little skippity bits around it. So it's not a perfect polka dot. And then we've got this worn plaid that when you stamp it, it already creates that worn look. It's a wonderful set that quite honestly could be used for many other things outside of Easter. It could be great for spring. It could be great for steampunk. So many cool ways. And it was weird because, you know, when I was looking through stamps, before I talk about the sample that I made, which I already shared, but I want to talk about it. I was going through like how many Easter stamps I did. I haven't done very many. Like the first one I did was number 84. We're now in like 400 and somethings. But that was that little rabbit. That was Spring Sprung and the little stitching. He was good. And then of course the blueprints. We did the chocolate rabbit that comes in 2 sizes. Then we did the spring shadows. These are really great. I know Tammy B did a great make with even the eggs for that, which I think is good. Then there's some other like nods to Easter where, like when we did the crazy birds and cats, there's this great little set of bunny ears. Christina Werner drew this set, but I love those little ears that could be put on different things. And then of course the crazy talk, that's where I got Hippity Hop and Happy Easter for the Bottlebrush Tree cards. So I like this little handwriting stuff. But that was really kind of it in the world of rubber when it comes to Easter. I mean, I've done a lot of florals, but it was kind of crazy. So he was definitely much needed. I have done some clear sets. We did this rabbit last year. These are available. The clear stamps, not a lot of retailers sell clear stamps, although they could. These are all through Stampers Anonymous. So, and he doesn't retire these either, but this was a clear set that you can still find online. You can see I've used it because it totally stained it, but that was a fun set. This is a new one. So this is taking like that spring shadows. It's just a smaller scale, not a lot, just a little smaller scale and some sentiments. This is great. This is only in clear, just like this one, only in clear. There's no rubber, but you can tell this was inspired by the die set. But these are tiny compared to the dies. I mean, tiny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, way tiny, but they're cute.
They're perfect.
But I liked them because it's a silhouette, and people said, you know, so it's fun that you can stamp this and do the little chocolate thing. It's got little splatters. It's got a great stencil with it. But this is new this year. This was also inspired by the dies where I did for Vault. So see, sometimes I'll do product for a certain brand and it like inspire something else where I know that the bird silhouettes and these have only been Sizzix dies. I'm like, oh, that'd be great for stamps. But, you know, I don't do everything in rubber. I try to, but some ideas, you know, that are kind of repetition, we do it in clear. So anyway, those are available. So that's kind of your spring lineup assortment to create with. But we're going to focus on Mr. Rabbit for right now because it's fun. So, okay. So Mr. Rabbit, I wanted to make a card, and you're going to see right away that I modified my card since I posted it, because you can ask Mario, I am that maker. I am that maker that I will make something and I will modify it if it's sitting around. It doesn't really matter. You know, people go, oh, it's done, move on to something else. I'm like, yeah, but if I have an idea, I need to do it. And when I made the card, I thought that this rabbit always needed a monocle. He just did. He needed that thing. But at the time, when I made him, I couldn't figure out what to use as a monocle because nothing was the right size. If I used any of the Ideology glass, it was too big. If I tried to make it out of wire, it just did not look good. And I wanted to really create something fun. So this is the card that I did for Mr. Rabbit, but now you can see he's got a monocle, which is not part of the regular photo. Here's what I figured out for the monocle. I looked through all of my stuff just to look for different rings. And one thing that I had in a drawer that I never go to because I don't use them anymore were these Ideology ring press tag rings. These were these aluminum rings that you can make metal tags, and it was not the greatest. But I still have these rings. Why? I don't even have the press anymore. And Mario's even said, why do you keep those? I'm like, I don't know. I'm a maker.
Oh, no. Remember
I might use them for something.
Ran them through the
Yeah,
we smashed them?
yeah, you can run them through your Sidekick or the Vagabond and smash them. But I wanted to keep them. And so when I first put it down, I put it down like the metal ring would be. And that wide ring was like not good. Not really going to work. But if you flip it over, really you only see like that thin edge, and it gave me something to glue. So that's what I did. I just took that ring and glued it that way. Because see, if you glued it that way, it would be really like, hello.
More look like
Yeah.
glasses.
But I also think that by like leaving that edge up, it just gave it the monocle. And before I did, I just put on just a scrap piece of chain with a little jump ring. I wanted to leave that kind of jangly dangly, but you could glue it down if you want. And then I just tacked it under there so, you know, it didn't fly everywhere. But anyway, that was just a lot of fun. And I had a great time with making with this because you can do so many cool things with this. That to me is my favorite thing about it. So there you go. It's a tag ring. It's a small size and some chain. So I'm telling you, always look in your stash. You never know. And if something doesn't hit you, don't give up on the idea, but definitely move on. Like, I mean, I needed to post the card. I wanted a monocle, but I wasn't going to settle, and he went without. But then when I found it, I'm like, he's getting it. So there you go. That to me is really, really important. I love that. I saw an idea, acetate for a lens. Yeah, you could do acetate. You could do glossy accents. You could fill it with embossing powder. Very cool. So we'll talk about this image and really why I wanted to make it so big and just kind of create some elements with it. So I'm just I got a tin here of some ink, and we'll talk about some different inks to create backgrounds, and we'll break the card down, but then I'll also just do some other stamping play just so I can answer some questions along the way. So for my card, I wanted to have some other dimensional elements. This is a great charm set from Ideology. A lot of people asked about where I got the prize ribbon. This is from an adornment set called Lucky, but you can see you can also use the clover. That'd be great on his lapel, put a 4-leaf clover, or you could even have that little lucky charm or a star. I just clipped this off with some wire cutters and added some distressed paint and crayons to the metal, but that's really where I got the charm adornment. This is another one that would be great. The Ideology bouquet have these little flowers, so you can make a great little boutonniere for him. I mean, that would be great. You can use a cluster, or you can just use a single flower. So there's a lot of things that you can do to embellish him to use different times. That's what I'm trying to tell you, is that, you know, if you wanted a lucky rabbit for maybe St. Patrick's Day, use him and then put a little clover on there, or lucky. If you wanted it just to be spring, maybe do something florally, and you don't have to do any of the eggs. Then I use a little bit of Ideology. This is actually a piece of fabric that I stitched on. Just had a good time with that. Some buttons, little random sewing, and then this, because I really wanted that whole Easter basket vibe. So one of my favorite Sizzix 3D folders from a texture perspective is this one. It's called Woven. And it's a brilliant folder because when you ink it, you can really get those deep shadows into the debossed areas. So typically I take a archival ink, dark, this is just ground espresso, and I ink the folder. And so instead of lightly inking, I mean, I'm really just like grinding it in there. So I don't do like any of that light stuff for this particular one. I just go in and just grind this ink pad in there. And then when you run your paper through, it just pushes that color into all those areas. I can still ink this, so I can still get this to be tan or beige or whatever color I want it to be, but that dark shadow that really makes this look so dimensional is in there and permanent. So that's another reason why I like archival, is because now when I go and alter this, I don't have to worry about that brown re-wetting at all. So you could start with craft, which is what I did here. It just made it quicker. I knew I wanted brown, but it would really work on any paper. Then I just sprayed some resist spray over the top of it. That's what gave it its shine, because I felt that when I put this together, the paper on paper on paper, it made it got a little lost. And quite honestly, I talked about those baskets, had that little bit of sheen. And then honestly, when I started putting this down, because I had done so much to this piece of paper, I mean, I inked it, I sprayed it, I oxide, I tattered it, I resist, I dried it again. By the time I put it on this card, the paper was falling apart. And so you could see it started really good, and then it went bad. And so I just started picking away at it. And then I'm like, oh, I love that. I love that look of that piece. So instead of starting over, I just kind of went with it because only a little bit was showing anyway. So that was kind of the breakdown of the card, and just give you a little more insight than what I was able to post on Instagram. It's quite fun just to play around with stuff that you have. And I always say that, like, when you get something new, go into the toy box, see what other toys you can bring out with it, which was like the embossing folder, or, you know, the ideology snippets, or any of the metals. It's just really, really a good time. Is this hand stitching? Someone asked. No, this is a sewing machine. This is full on. I go in, do a straight stitch, and then I go back and do a little ziggity zaggity. I like leaving the threads. Yeah, just really random on the tag. And then everything is just foam squared, stuck together. Because I just do all my pieces separate, and then I stack. I mean, you can see the anatomy of a card. Look at that. It's just tape. I just do pieces, and then I just build. It's kind of like build a card. I don't know where I'm going, but I have all these components, and then you just start sticking them on down. That's fun. So with Mr. Rabbit, he's a cool one to work with, and we can do a lot of different things. I think I'm going to start by just doing a quick background. Let's do that. So I'm going to take a little salvage patina, smash that down. That's oxide. Then let's go in with some gathered twigs. I'm not going to use much of that. That's an ink pad. I've got stuff everywhere, so I'm just going to use what I have out. I'm going to do is a little spray stain. That'll be good there. Now, whenever you have ink here, you need to get that ink wet in order for it to transfer. So I'm going to go with water on the ink. You'll see that looks like that now. And then I'm using water over here. But I don't need to put water where the stain is. There's no need for that. But you can see everything is kind of droplet looking. Then you could take a tag, watercolor paper, whatever you want. And then I'm just going to start printing in it. Now, to do this technique, it's really important to just bring out your inner 5-year-old. Just get in there and like splash. Don't feel the need to do this with your paper, because that just soaks up exactly what that pattern is. So I'm just going to take the paper and I'm going to splash a little bit there, splash a little there, and flip it. And you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. And I say that with love, because what you want to do is you want to build up color, but you don't need to create mud. And we want spatters, and we want fluid movement, and we want blank space, because that's what's going to build up the colors, okay? So when I dry this, I start with it flat, and then, as I said before, try to pick it up if you can. If you don't like the way something is looking, you can edit at this point. Like if you don't like all that ink there, I happen to love it, but if you don't, you can blot it off right now. But you're going to dry this first layer. It doesn't have to be crispy dry, just dry. So here's what we have. Okay, so you can still see most of it's dry, a lot of it's wet, and now I'm going to go back in. So I can see on my palette, blue is here, brown's there, brown's here, blue's there. So now I'm going to put blue where brown and brown where blue. So I'll take this, go into the blue, go into the brown, flip it, dry it. And when I say you get what you get, it means that most people, when you're doing a background, you have unrealistic expectations of perfection, right? You think it's just going to be this beautiful blended thing. And sometimes that will happen in your crafting career. You'll do it, and that first time you're like, this is perfection. It hasn't happened to me very often that I actually like something on the first dismount. And that's why it's important just to like put it in, flip it over, put it in, flip it over, because by doing that, it's just going to allow you to build up layers that you wouldn't normally expect. If you keep smashing it, that's where everything becomes muddy. But here you can still see that splash of blue. I think that's really, really important. All right. Beautiful. I'm going to keep going. As long as you have little speckles of color on here, you should be able to add some other layers. So now you can see this is kind of drying out. So here's some options. If you wanted more color, you could add more color. I don't want any more color, but if you did, you could add more color. But if you want just to kind of get a blend layer, add just water to what's here. And this is what I refer to as the blend layer. If you don't really like this blank space, but you want some color, that blend layer is just going to give you a little bit more of that, like almost a wash of muck, but it won't interrupt your background, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it softens your stuff back there. So I really like that. You don't have to do it. It's just another option. Okay, now I'm just going to wipe that off because I'm done with that. Going to finish drying, and we're going to stamp. Now, could you go in and stamp first and then do a background? Sure. But a background's a background because it's in the background. So I think by putting it there, then you have a little bit more, I don't know, creative play as far as your image choices. Often when I'm doing backgrounds, that's just what I'll do. I'll just do backgrounds for half the day with no expectations. It allows me to play with colors I wouldn't normally use, different mediums, and that's where you learn things. I don't normally work this way like I do during the lives. I don't work with intent, typically. I just like to play. I like to answer the what if. All right, there's our background. Simple, it's got some color. It's got a little bit of soft moodiness to it, and that's because one of the colors was an oxide. Oxide will do that. It'll give you that softer look. So then we'll stamp on this. So let me just take, you can stamp really with a lot of tools. It just depends on how you want to work. I got a little bit of grip on here. There we go. Bring those magnets. Okay, let's put this down. That's going to work. And let's see where I want to put him. Okay, so I really like the ability to kind of position him wherever I want. He can come off to the side. He could take center stage. He could be kind of going off this way, but edit it. Like look what would happen. So you lose the cute part of his nose. So I don't know if I would really do that. So I'm just going to put him over here. Now, in the case of the card, let's go back to the card. I did just that. It's a tag. That's where it started. And then when I stamped him, I liked it, but for whatever reason, I felt like I was missing the rest of his body. Of course, this was when I was in monocle mode. So all I did was just took another piece of paper, stamped him again, and then just lined up the tag and finished my image, and that became a layer. So see, what started out as like, I hate that, ended up being like, I'll fix that. And I didn't care that the paper wasn't the same size. Who cares? It just worked. However it was lined up, I'm like, well, that's too bad. But now I got the rest of his shoulder and the rest of the ear. And it's a tag. And maybe people didn't even notice that it was a tag because it had that wide spot. I don't know. That's just important to really get out of your head. Because, you know, I think, but I'm going to cut off a lot of him right now. But I think that is important just to have a little bit of creative freedom when you're making. All right. Let's put that down. Let's take some archival. All right, it's going to get loud. I'm just going to lift this off. There we go. Ah, thank you. So when I'm inking, I like to if I'm inking a black layer, ink with purpose, you know, really get some ink on there. Don't swipe, don't squish, but ink with purpose. Okay, put that back in. All right, here we go. Place that down. Pressure, no CPR, but So like whenever I'm stamping, notice I always like have one hand stabilizing whatever I'm using, even when I'm using a block. Pressure, and we'll lift this up. Oh, look at him. He's great. He's so good. Ah, see, I just love that. I love that whole perspective part of it. So I don't need to stamp him again, although I could, but I don't need to. Then I can just take that off. Remove that. Done. Okay. Hey, Mario. It's so fun. We had this conversation. I swear to you guys, it was like 45 seconds before live, and I go, there will be something that I will need. It never fails. In the top drawer of that third basket on the top, the grid blocks. I'll just know next time just to get them. Thanks, Mario.
Which one?
Just some assorted sizes. Doesn't have to be the giant ones. But I want to stamp some images. Thanks. Without the platform. All right. Thank you. Oh, that's going to be great. And then, if you don't mind, let's see. Can I get a piece of domed foam from that little garbage can down there?
Yes.
There you go.
Sure can.
And by little garbage can, I mean little garbage can. This is where I keep my foams. In the little garbage can. Because it's good. Thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
Well, you know, that's just how it
You're
works.
welcome.
Because I need a clean piece of foam for this. We're going to do a little smudge stamping. That'll be fun. All right, let's create some dots. We'll do some pink. So I'm just going to take that dot. This looks fresh. Looks like, no, I did. Oh, it's because I used some distress ink. No, that one's stained. I'm just gonna prime this one real quick, just because I want some color on there. Just used a little archival and wipe that off. It's just going to help the distress ink stick a little bit better. You don't have to do that step, but I like to do it. Okay, let's take a little bit of, we'll do some pinks. A little salt water. And if you always want to check, I always want to, like, sometimes I just want to check that color. That's okay. It's not really my jam. I'll start with some salt water, but then I think I'm going to even throw in a little bit of picked, just because I want to add some color. There we go. Okay. So let's just take, we're going to add some rando polka dots. So I'll just stamp some there, stamp, and then I'm going to take blending tool and I'm just going to smudge it. Just going to go in a circular motion, just called smudge stamping. And all that does, it just softens that to be part of the background. I'll show you just on a tag so you can see. It's a simple thing if you're ever adding some background images to the foreground and you want them to look like the background. If you stamp and then just quickly go in and you like blend like you're blending a background. See how it just kind of smudges? See that like a little smudge, but it creates almost like a little drop shadow. It makes it part of the background. It's kind of, I just like that effect. Okay, I'm gonna clean that off with a little bit of water. All right, now we'll take the plaid. This plaid's gonna be fun. I think for that, I'm gonna do a little brown. Okay, so for this, because I want it just to be like a fill in the blanker, I'm just gonna hold the stamp instead of putting it on a block, because that will allow me to kind of get parts and pieces that I would want and create a different fade. Even though this has a fade, you know, sometimes I don't want it the way it's done. And I can still line up the plaid the way it is. There we go. So see, I was just able to kind of fill in the blank skippity bit with a stamp without worrying about, you know, oh, I need to stamp it here. What if it goes over his face? You have way more control that way. But I do love the worn look. So not everything has to be blocky. Now you're in my headspace. So welcome to the chaos. This is what I think, which is not much. That's how it works. Okay, I want to do a little background. So because I'm going to stamp this text in this background with black, instead of inking it the way I did the rabbit when I said ink with purpose, okay, I'm just going to swipe. I'm going to edit, little cloth, and then I'll just stamp. So I'll stamp a little bit there. Oh, I just like that. So see how it just kind of gave me that worn text? That's from swiping, and then you edit out some of the ink, because then you kind of get whatever you get. And you can do that with distress ink or oxide, but a lot of people, you know, maybe you just want the perfect look. You might want that. You don't have to use all the stamps either. I'm just doing it because it's going to be fun to do, but you don't have to. Okay, let's see. What do I have here? I put that there. I'll do that there. 5 eggs. Let's do, yeah, I think I'll just do a little 5 there, because there's a little off the rail. So I think I'll go, ooh, I want to do some green. Perfect. See, I said perfect before I even stamped it, because you get what you get. Okay, that's what we have so far. A very collage-y, fun little Easter tag so far. We'll take this little tool. It's kind of small for a tag. Well, I'll just use the one that I smudged because it had some pink, but I'll take some scorched on there. So, same rules apply if you're going to blend. And don't be afraid to like really get in there if you're blending, right? Meaning, if I'm going around this edge, don't be afraid to kind of over exaggerate some of those corners if you want some little smudge. I'll show you. Okay, that's what we have so far. See that little edge? A little edge there. Then I'm going to break up the party with just a little water. So someone asked about this sprayer, and I'll show you again. So here's what I did. See those droplets of water in the corner? I didn't go over the rabbit. It didn't matter. He's waterproof because he's archival, but I wanted some drips. The sprayer, if you commit, you get that mist. If you slowly squeeze the trigger, it's going to drip. And the like quicker, slower you are, you can almost get it like a squirt gun. So if you go really slow, it's just going to do 2 or 3 drips. But if you kind of go in between, just think of it like a squirt gun. And that's where you get the drips. Leave those in place for a while. I like to use a heat tool on them because the heat tool is just going to create more of an outline. And then take a paper towel, dry it. And all that's doing is lifting up those spots exactly where they were. And that's what's going to create just those little worn areas. It just creates a little texture. And you could do it as many times as you want if you're like, oh, I need some more water there. Well, it's better to do it a second time than keep adding water, and now your drip becomes a pond. So dry it. That's going to create the outline, and dab it. There we go. There's our extra drip. So fun. We could just keep playing. That, to me, is the magic of this. You can add a tattered edge. So if you want something tattered, you can really just go in with it, and that'll give it a nice chewed edge. This is just a paper distresser. All the edges, all the blade parts are the same, so it doesn't matter what notch you go in. Many of you probably have one, and when was the last time you used it? All right? A lot of people use scissors, but I love that, what it just does to paper. It gives it that great frayed look, and you could go all the way around with that. All right, we're going to add a little splatter to the top. I think if I have some paint, let's see what I got. Oh, I do. Perfect. We're gonna add some splatter because I want to add some splatter to them. So let me just take a splatter box, a splatter brush. Now you can use a paintbrush, whatever you're comfortable splattering with, use it. That's great. So I'm gonna mask him off. So here is my masking technique. There we go. That works. Just use whatever you have.
That's some technique.
That's it. Right? If you have a mask because you're a mask maker, then make a mask. But a paper towel is very forgiving in the mask making world. I told you, you're going to just get in my head. This is how I roll. Like, you just do. But, I mean, splattering, even if you're used to splattering, it can get out of control fast. And it never fails. It always ends up right in the eye or the nose or wherever you don't want it. So I put a little distress paint. Black is the thinnest of distress paint, so it's great for splattering. It's almost like ink. You're going to grab the middle part of the brush, not the end, the middle. Pull it back, and then you kind of let these go a little bit at a time. Just really, it's super easy to control because the closer you get, the bigger the splats. The further away, the smaller the splats. And you can concentrate the splats, and that's it. So you shouldn't have any paint on your hands because you pulled from the middle. It shouldn't be everywhere else because you let them go slowly. We remove the mask and the bonus mask. And that's our speckly spattered tag. Great, yeah, and we'll just dry that. You could dry it or you could let it air dry, but for my sake, I'll dry it. Okay, this you can just clean with water. Paint, it's going to take a little bit longer to dry paint because paint's sitting there in like little balls of paint. So you can use really however, most of the time when I splatter, I just set it aside because it's going to take a while to dry. Okay. Nice. All right, now let's add some color to Mr. Rabbit. I'll put this over here. That's fine. It's just wet. Just be careful, Mario. Like where to put the splatter brush. Because now if you see my table, it's like, it's piled up over here. That's what it is. Okay, let's go in with some pencils. So we can quickly add some color to him. You can use whatever medium you want to color him. That's fine. I want to find, we'll just do a little pink. Maybe I'll use some tattered rose. And maybe here, a little kitsch. And I'm just going really, really quick. You don't have to overthink this at all. I think maybe I'll do an orange bow tie. Why not? A little carved pumpkin. That'll be fun. And do I want any other color? Yeah, I think I want to throw in a little bit of green for his little vest right there. We'll do a little line of peeled and a line of crushed. Okay. I'm good with that. Good, good. Now I'll do some brown. Just for his jacket. So maybe on his jacket I'll do, let's do a little brush corduroy. With a little bit of walnut stain. Okay. Well, now you can see really how I just, when you color, the great thing about watercolor pencils is you can put it down and you can either keep it scribbly sketchy where you like it, like in the cheeks, like I like just the pencil line of that, but here in the bow tie and the jacket, I can just go in with a water brush and now I can just blend that out and just fill in the blanks and really give it more of that watercolor look. And so when I'm cleaning the brush, I'm just using the mat because I want to keep water in the brush. So if you get in the habit with a water brush, if you have too much water, use a paper towel. But if you have plenty of water, then don't wipe it off on a paper towel every time because otherwise it'll pull out all the water. So there we go. Just blended, kind of fun. I love that little blue in there, little pink. Simple tag, but easy just to go with Mr. Rabbit and color. And I've got to say, like, the makers, a shout out to the makers that when we launched Mr. Rabbit, there was so much inspiration that was shared on Instagram. So you definitely want to check out all of the inspiration for using Mr. Rabbit. But it was good fun. Really, I mean, this was a lot of creative play, I think. I hope you guys enjoyed some of those spring ideas. I'm going to try to pile all this stuff back. Let's see how we do, Mario. You know I like this. You know at the end I always like to just pile it all on the table.
Yes, you do.
And see what we get. So I probably want to zoom out on some of this because this is going to be good. All right. Play this down. Let's put in some stuff just to kind of give you a reminder of what we went through. We certainly have some great inspiration from Mr. Rabbit. Let's not forget these wonderfully fun tags. They are hilarious. They're good fun.
So funny.
Let's see. Oh gosh, I don't think I'll be able to fit all of this in. We've got some great colorful, sparkly, splattery paste. We've got rosettes for days.
Man.
In all sorts of different colors. Then of course we've got our wonderfully tinted baskets. little chocolate eggs, if you will, and some Bottlebrush carrots, and we'll try to bring in these little dishes of goodness. Some little eggs. Look at that. Look at that. See? That's just fun. Look at all the ideas. All the ideas and all the creative play of today, whether it's chocolate bunnies or eggs or fun tags or cards or pastes or finding little trinkets. I think there's a lot to be said about really what you can create and be inspired by for Easter and spring. That was fun, right, Mario?